As I was saying, public comment on any item not on the agenda. Mary?
Yeah, very cool. I just have one question, please, about item A. That's just an announcement. There'll be no discussion, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Anything else on any topic not on the agenda? Okay. Are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda? Seeing none. That's the agenda.
Okay, your request.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Eric, go ahead.
Guess we could move you to earlier in the evening, and not be the last thing of the night. I really don't want to stay till the end of the meeting.
I have personally no objection to that.
Yep. It's fine. Move it to any point.
Could we move it to first?
No, we've got something else minor first. We could, let's put it, because we've got, the most important thing tonight is the zoning regulation hearing. Let's put it right after item B.
So between B and C.
Thank you. Thank you.
You see.
Okay, so item A is merely informational. We've been requested to make the public well aware that at the next meeting of the select board on the 18th, there is a discussion contemplated regarding timeframes to display the Black Lives Matter sign and flag. It is currently not up all year, and we have had a request from some citizens to make it up, stay up all year, but we're simply notifying people of that discussion and possible action, and we are not taking any action tonight. And Duncan's over here throwing things at the.
All right.
Okay,
Jay, just to be clear, for people who are interested in that conversation, that arguably a select board could decide to keep our flag or the presentation the same, or lengthen it, have it year round, or something else.
that's right.
I mean, it's a blank slate for the
Right.
select board.
That's
Fine.
completely correct. Okay, our next item on the agenda is the public hearing for consideration to approve select board revisions to the Richmond Zoning Regulations, sections 3.9, Jolina Court District, 5.12, Planned Unit Development, PUD, and Residential PUD, 7 definition, and the introduction of new section 6.15, Residential Density Bonus Program, and paragraph 6.16, Affordable Housing. In order for us to have that discussion, we need to open the hearing of draft resolutions in the packet. Anybody like to? Yes, no.
Jay, this is David. I move to open the public hearing for consideration of select board revisions to the Richmond Zoning Regulations, sections 3.9, Jolina Court District, 5.12, Planned Unit Development, and Residential PUD, 7, definitions, and the introduction of new section 6.15, Residential Density Bonus Program, and paragraph 6.16, Affordable Housing.
Okay, this is Bart. I will second that.
And we have a motion from David Sander. Could members of the audience? Shh. We have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Bart Hill, to open the public hearing for consideration of the zoning regulations revisions. Any further discussion? Could you please state your name and your vote.
Bart, aye.
Adam, I.
David, I.
Caitlin? And Jay, aye. So the hearing is open. Planning Commission Chair Virginia Clark and Planning and Zoning Director Keith O'Born are here, and we will turn it over to them.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to defer to the chair on this occasion. I think we've pretty much know the history of this. We've been at it for a little while. And I shall turn it over to Virginia.
Okay, very good. So what we're going to just briefly talk about is the changes that were made in response to the select board's reaction and the public's reaction to our previous presentation. So we'll just briefly go through the changes. All of the previous documents and the previous memos relate to the documents in their entirety. So the most significant revisions to the Jolina Court Zoning District section itself, section 3.9, include an increase in the allowed maximum base residential density. Basically, this is the number of housing units that are allowed on this property. And we changed from a base allowance of 20 units to 24 units per developable acre. So there are 3 developable acres to this parcel. So 24 units times 3, 72 units right now is what is allowed on the whole parcel. So if they ever wanted any more than that, they would have to come back and go through this process again. So we're allowing for 72 units as the base density. We are also introducing a section which is called 6.15, which is allowed for an additional 18 units if some of those units are, as we have designated, either affordable housing or accessible, adaptable housing. So we could have 72 units. The density bonus section is totally optional. The developer could use it or they might not use it. So they have either a total of 72 or they could go to 90 if they elected to put these units in that met the standards of 6.15. We did not make it a mandatory provision. We don't feel we can deal with that at this point in time. So this is optional. It is a step towards possibly in some point in the future, making affordable housing, let's say, not optional, but mandatory. So this is optional. The second significant change that we made was to allow for 80% of the existing building, building 1, to be used for residential uses. So in the original zoning for this district and this project, we had envisioned a traditional kind of commercial on the ground floor, residential on the upper floors. This, if you look at a lot of the new buildings in Williston, this is what they look like. Businesses on the ground floor, residences up above. The decline in the commercial space market has made this very difficult to hold developers to. So we changed the conditions to allow the rear half, if you like, or 80% of building 1 to be used for residences, and just the front piece, the small area that faces directly onto Bridge Street, that remains with a commercial requirement to it. So, and the other buildings, building 2, which they're hoping to develop, that will be able to have residences on the ground floor. And this is all in response to the residential housing crisis that is occurring in Chittenden County and statewide and countrywide, really. So those are the 2 main changes that we made to our previous documents. The other item, section 6.15, is the addition of the density bonus scheme or program that will allow them to have the additional residential units if they make them what we want them to be. Section 6.16 is taken directly out of statutes that were passed in 2024. And that requires us to allow, if an affordable development is created based on certain definitions that are set in the statute and in our regulations, if that is created, then they automatically are allowed to receive a 40% density bonus. This may not be combined with our other density bonus program. So they can also exceed the height limit by 1 story. So if and when we have a development that meets the affordable housing development standards, we are required to allow them to go up to an additional story beyond our 35 feet that we have right now. So we will have to, deal with that if and when we have such a project. So basically, those are the changes that were requested. The definition, the change in the definition is you put in affordable housing definition into the definition section. The affordable housing definition is also in section 6.16.
It is a bit redundant.
In 2 places, that's fine. And affordable housing, as you probably all know, has a very specific definition in the law. You have to meet certain exact criteria of income and, there's an income sensitivity piece, the rental charge or the cost of the housing if it's a for sale. So affordable housing is a thing. It's not like just, it's kind of affordable, but it has to meet exact affordable housing standards. So are there any questions?
Yes, select board questions for the,
If you are on IDEA or.
okay. I think Mike might be muted.
HD today, or the potential for projections.
David.
We've been watching this picture all day. Sport from cats.
David.
To the northern United States.
Thank you. Okay, the board has no questions at this time. Would members of the audience like to ask any questions about these proposed changes to our zoning?
Hi, Megan. Curious.
What's your last name? I'm sorry.
Megan Buckley.
Okay.
Question on the affordability. I was curious on the 15-year requirement. That seems really small. Lots of towns, it is in perpetual affordable, usually done through CHT or what have you. So I'm just curious to understand why only 15 years. I'm just curious on the
Right.
mechanism of how that happens.
Yeah, well, we talked about it extensively at the planning commission and somewhat here. Perpetually is a long time.
Yes.
Yes.
To keep the records going, to keep enforcing it by the town with our changing staff. We have a very small planning staff to be able to actually, for an infinite amount of time, be able to keep track of that and to enforce it. So we took the 15 years from the state statute, basically. Section 6.16 that we're adding in there about the affordable housing development projects, that had a 15-year. It's not perfect and,
No, I mean, I think it doesn't offer a long continuum of affordability.
it does not. And even at the state level, nobody seemed to know what the future was going to hold. Is this going to be, is it just going to get worse or are we going to develop some other kinds of procedures? It seemed the best we could do. I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Keith, but.
No, I think the focus was on suturing
It's up
it
like
with,
7:45.
so.
I would say other organizations like CHT manage that. So they own the land, they manage it. So in perpetuity with an equity sharing model, that opportunity exists. It's certainly not perfect either. It has some holes in it, but I'm just thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for regular developers who are not affordable housing developers,
Well, CHT does
it's
sold,
difficult.
Champlain Housing Trust, that's what they do.
Right, exactly. So for affordable housing developers like Champlain Housing Trust.
They have the human power to manage them.
Yeah, and they have the continuity within their organization and they're sort of set up to do it. We're kind of not really set up to do it, but it's a good question. Anyway.
Okay, Bard?
I'll just make an historical observation. At one point in time, there were a bunch of, I think they were tax incentive vehicles that had 30-year lifespans, like Northgate and Westgate. For some reason, a whole bunch of these developments where their names ended up in gate. And they had a fixed timeline. And there was a point in time where like 50 units would suddenly not be affordable anymore and came off the market as affordable to market rate. So this kind of thing has happened in the past with some level of disruption, mostly because of the scale for those developments, most of which dated, I think, from the 60s and 70s.
Okay, Chris?
Chris Grant, Planning Commission. Virginia, I believe, is there a time, a length of time for the state statute required affordable housing inclusive zoning in the larger developments? Was that what did we?
Yeah,
connect
that's
that
where
to
we
that
got
as
it.
well?
That's where we got
Yeah.
the 15 years
So
from.
we were being consistent with the existing state statute, just applying it to the smaller developments. But I think it's also And just to sort of reiterate what Virginia said, this is the first time that the town of Richmond has tried doing this kind of inclusive zoning. And we want to see how it works. And I think questions for the future, in addition to extending beyond 15 years, would be what other parts of town would this also be applied to? And you know, is it structured the right way, you know, in terms of the number of the additional density that comes as a result of building affordable units. So all of those things I think will be enriched by experience with this first step.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
And the other thing that we used the state's format or template for was our density program. So the affordable housing development program, which is section 6.16, you have to have a certain size of development. It has to be big enough, and you have to have a certain number of affordable units. We wanted to make it possible for developers to have just a few units, you know, maybe a couple of units, because our scale is so much smaller than places like South Burlington or Essex. So we based it basically on the percentages coming from the state. So.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from the board? Any questions again from any member of the public? Okay, are we ready to have a vote to close the hearing? Or is there more discussion that suddenly pops into your head?
I think the reason we're missing a lot of the discussion is because we've hashed this out. This is a
Yeah.
significantly revised proposal, right? So
This is the recap.
I don't want
Right, so-
anyone to watch this and not the other meetings and think that we didn't have any input or we
Right.
don't care. There's been a lot of caring ahead of time. It's been front loaded. So
Yeah. So
Yeah, and
basically,
it's been really 2 years.
Yeah.
In preparation. So there was a lot of work done at the planning commission, a lot of work done at the select board. Our basic documents were sound, but we changed the numbers to add a little more housing, basically.
so we have the option at this point, if we're satisfied and don't need to have anything further, we don't need to send any directions back. We can move to close the hearing. If we wish to give further direction to the planning commission, we can continue the hearing. So what is the board's will?
Jay, this is David. I move to close the public hearing.
Okay,
This is Bard. I will second that.
and we have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Bart Hill to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Hey, please state your name and your vote.
Bard, aye.
Yeah.
Adam, I.
David, I.
Or she's
Caitlin?
fine.
Caitlin, I.
And J.I. Okay, the hearing is closed. Would somebody like to make the motion to adopt the amendments?
Jay, this is David. I move to approve the Richmond Zoning Regulation amendments per BSA 4441G 3.9 Jolina Court District, 5.12 Planned Unit Development and Residential Planned Unit Development, 7 definitions and the introduction of new zoning section 6.15 Residential Density Bonus Program and 6.16 Affordable Housing. For clarity purposes, there is no change to the official zoning map requiring legislative approval, and these approvals shall be effective 21 days from the date of this resolution.
This is Bard. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Bart Hill, to approve the proposed changes to the Richmond Zoning Regulation Amendment. These changes would be approval 21 days from the date of this resolution. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, I would just say that this is no guarantee that we'll get any housing there, right? It seems to be the kind of the trend we're on. And hopefully this opens it up so that the developer can make something happen.
Yeah.
But they'll have to come back again likely if they want to realize the full potential of that. I think of what they have imagined. So
Okay, I think we're ready for a vote. Please state your name and your vote.
Bard, aye.
Adam, I.
David, I.
Caitlin, I. Caitlin, I.
And J.I. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Keith and Virginia. Have a pleasant evening. Unless you want to stay around and enjoy the
Little bit.
The further discussions.
okay. we've agreed to move item U to the agenda at this point. Item U is consideration of providing a bonus to the town manager. The board conducted our town manager's annual performance review at the last meeting. And at that meeting, it was a determination of the board that we are frankly unusually lucky in who we have as our town manager. He has had to handle an unusually large load of work because of all the outside things like floods and zoning changes, not zoning changes, stormwater changes and so forth. We could go on for quite a while. In this economy, it would be very difficult to replace him were he to decide to take another job elsewhere. And we discussed it among ourselves without the town manager present, and it was the recommendation of the board at that time that we authorize a $5,000 bonus to the town manager. However, that vote cannot be taken in executive session. It must be taken in public. And so that is the item currently before us, is consideration of providing a bonus. Though we discussed a particular number in executive session, we are not bound to that number. So I'll start with the board. Would anybody like to discuss this or talk about it?
Jay, this is David. I just want to say that I don't, and I represent 20% of the board, not the board. I don't see this as an annual thing that we would do. But the town manager worked considerably extra time in the last year with the second year of unprecedented flooding and the resulting FEMA claims that are still being worked through. Some very time-intensive personnel issues, some big water and sewer projects, the big stormwater projects, also regularly scheduled town projects that took a lot of extra time. It's not lost on the board that Josh has consistently worked well over 40 hours a week, being salaried. And I want to say that we recognize a lot of the town staff have gone above and beyond, but it's not lost on this member of the board that it's entirely possible that Josh could make a few phone calls and get significantly more money in a surrounding town. And then we would be hard pressed to find a replacement for Josh, which would be very expensive, probably resulting in hiring another staff to train, assist. So I don't like to spend money, but in my mind, this is money well spent to overall hopefully save money and keep Josh.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment from members of the board? Caitlin, Bard, Adam?
I would just say that in addition to all the hours worked, there's been a bunch of issues that have arisen in the last year that I think Josh has handled extremely professionally and thoughtfully.
And inexpensively.
And really done a great job of mitigating any risks to the town or any person on the town. And there's a lot of stuff that happens that Josh deals with that should not and will never be public, I think. And the way he has done that has been exceptional and well above what we could expect from any other employee.
Bard?
Thank you, Jay. I'd only add or to put these two together. So from my perspective and observation, it's both quantity and quality, that the quantity is pretty high in terms of both the volume of work and the hours work. But from a performance evaluation perspective, I give Josh high marks in terms of the quality of his performance, as well as Adam was alluding to.
Also, Jay, I just want to add, every year we go through the evaluation and there are always things to work on. And last year we suggested things to be worked on, and those issues were all addressed, in our opinion, very satisfactorily.
Yeah, except for one thing, which is unfortunately very hard to do, which is don't work 60 hours a week. I know as was said, a lot of our town staff work very long hours. But it would be very difficult to replace Josh were he to say, I can't handle this. I'm going to go off and become a beachcomber in Bora Bora, which sometimes sounds very appealing. Caitlin, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, sorry, and I'm really sick, so I'm trying to save you guys from any kind of germs, so I'm online tonight. I just want to add that I've only been on for, of course, a couple months here, but Josh has been incredible in getting me on board and just getting us all set up with the right information at the right time, and really driving this town in a way that is both humble but also forceful. And we are very lucky to have him. So,
Okay. So you've heard from the board. Would any member of the public like to comment on this topic? Karen?
That's a couple of questions.
Absolutely.
He saved us, it sounds like, from litigation on more than one occasion is what you're talking about. So how are we with our legal budget? I mean, are we under budget? Because if you're under budget there and he saved us those funds, it seems reasonable. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm for or against this, but if that's the case, we should be under budget on our legal expenses for FY 2025. For the year that we just came out of, and we ended June 30th for that fiscal year. So that might be a data to benefit your argument. The only other question I would have is, have we done this for him at all in the past 5 years? Is this the first time?
No, in answer to your question, we gave him a $3,000 bonus 2 years ago. And I do not remember what we did during your term, most recent term as chair.
I can't remember.
It is, as David said, is not something we do every year because at that point it simply becomes expected compensation. But we feel that this year he did deserve it, in our opinion.
I appreciate you answering those questions. And the last question that I have is that I know that you guys have looked at salaries and pay scales across the board. And I just want you to understand that he has come above and beyond. As you're saying, he's worked extra hours, and you're saying other staff are as well. So I think it's a slippery slope. You might need to evaluate salaries. Then I just would say you might want to think about doing it that way rather than bonuses that are randomly decided by different select boards.
Well, it's not.
In that sense of by individuals, it's not like a pattern.
Okay, that's a good point. Judy, you have your hand up.
Thanks. Judy Rostovsky, Chair of the Richmond Conservation Commission, and I would like to express my appreciation to the Select Board for acknowledging Josh's skills. He is a talented administrator. He is always on top of the multitude of things going on in the town. He has helped us out behind the scenes any number of times. I just really appreciate his help and his work, his calmness, and his ability to grasp complex issues rapidly. So I appreciate the Select Board for acknowledging that, especially with the flooding and the large number of complicated pieces that came up that that the town had to deal with that. So thanks.
Thank you, Judy. Angela?
Angela Cote. I just want to say I'm in support of this motion, what we're discussing right now. But I wanted to ask, or make a suggestion, ask a question. Is it possible in corporate America, whenever I was receiving a bonus of, considerable percentage of my annual salary, I was asked to sign a commitment that I would not at will terminate my employment with that employer for a certain period of time after receiving that monetary bonus. And so I'm wondering, offering it as a suggestion, because you expressed a fear of if we lost him, we would have a hard time replacing him. So if that really, to address the fear, would you consider adding that commitment component to this one-time only, doesn't happen every year bonus package thing that we're considering doing for him? So that's just my suggestion. Thank you.
Would any member of the board like to comment on that?
I guess having gone through this with my spouse and stuff, if we're going to offer him a retention bonus, $5,000 is not going to be commensurate with what we would need to. So, I mean, I don't think it's a terrible idea, but if we were going to, we were framing this as a reflection of Josh's performance over the past year, not with the expectation of him staying. But if we were to explore a retention bonus, I would want to name it specifically and differently. And also, I think that a $5,000 retention bonus would be unacceptably low with the market conditions for that skill set right now.
So this is barred in that sense that a retention bonus might turn into a negotiation about what it is, how much for how long.
Good point.
Okay. I'm looking to the audience. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Chelsea Brooks, Richmond resident. I just had another question. So you had expressed sort of this like fear of losing him, or just a general worry, right, in this market and finding quality employees. And you may not be able to share this, has he expressed an interest in looking elsewhere is my first sort of thought. And two, you said that he could get more money somewhere else, but I am interested to know if you have compared salaries to nearby towns that are comparable size or even bigger. I mean, maybe he, is going to take a step up from Richmond, or talk to the LCT about, where do we stand in the grand scheme of salaries? Because it sort of just builds on Kara's comment about, do we need to reevaluate like our pay grades and salary?
My sense from VLCT is that Josh probably is undercompensated. The tricky thing about evaluating salaries compared to other towns is you have to see which towns. Compared to Chittenden County, he is definitely in the lower half of compensation because we're up against some very sizable bodies. Last time we did a salary comparison, we selected peer towns from all over the state, and we have not done that survey in the last year. So I can't give you an authoritative answer. I will say Josh has not come and said, I'm thinking about leaving, but we worry all the time that he's going to burn out because none of us think it's tenable to be putting the kind of hours he's putting in. And every year, that is the same thing we tell him every year is you've got to delegate. One unfortunate artifact of the budget process this past year is that this young gentleman sitting right here has steadily had his hours increase. So you're now 40 hours a week, correct?
Right, but we lost 25 hours.
But we also budgeted for another person to help with all this, Lynn Carolio, who I'm probably mispronouncing her name yet again. And her position was not continued as a result of the budget. So that's 25 hours of work that is being dumped back on Duncan and Josh. And we wanted very badly to keep the tax rate increase in the single digits, and we were able to do that, but some hard choices had to be made. But at the end of the day, none of us want Josh to burn out. And you work enough hours, eventually your health starts to suffer, and we're trying to keep that from happening. Okay. I'm not seeing that their hands going up. Would anybody like to make a motion? It will be at the very end of your agenda.
So I make a motion.
Jay, this is David. I move to pay the town manager, Josh Arneson, a one-time bonus of $5,000.
Adam, second.
It was a motion made by David Sanders, seconded by Adam Wood, to pay town manager Josh Arneson a bonus of $5,000. Don't see any hands up. I'm looking around. Okay, please state your name and your vote.
Bart, aye.
Adam, aye.
David, aye.
Caitlin, aye.
Jay, aye. Thank you. By the way, Josh's absence tonight was not strategically planned, so we could have this discussion with him not here. The poor gentleman is actually taking a vacation of a whole week, and we told him, whatever you do, don't check your email. And knowing him, he
is.
Yeah. Okay. Our next item on the agenda is consideration of making an appointment to the Trails Committee. We have received an application from Amy Welch. Is Amy with us tonight?
She was.
She's just an administrator.
Amy is here.
I'm here. I'm online.
Hi, Amy. Amy has applied to be on the Trails Committee. She has told us why she'd like to do it, but rather than just reading it, I'd like to hear it from herself. Amy, tell us why you'd like to be on the Trails Committee.
Okay, so I as you know, Alex McAleer, who's on the Trails Committee right now, and I was chatting with her earlier in the summer, and she said that they were short a couple of Trails Committee members, and that they were even struggling to reach quorum at some meetings. And I've been a member of the Richmond community for about 6 years now. I lived in Jericho before that. And I use the trails all the time. I think about them all the time. I'm concerned about it. I have a professional background in in exercise science. I'm a professor and have some, experience with being on committees and engaging in sort of work in the professional arena, but I haven't really committed any time to the community before. But I think now is a good time for me to do that, and I would like to help contribute to the Trails Committee and the town's management of the trails and the ability to kind of keep access going to those trails.
Okay, thank you, Amy. We're very grateful to have your application. Would a member of the board like to ask Amy any questions? Okay, I will note that we have 2 open seats on the Trails Committee. If anybody is sitting out there tonight going, I too would like to apply. We have 1 seat open that ends in 2026, 1 seat that ends in 2028. Amy, do you have a preference as far as which you're appointed to?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take the longer term.
Okay. Any discussion?
Jay, this is David. I move to appoint Amy Welsh to the Trails Committee to fill a vacant seat with a term ending in 2028.
This is Bard. I will second that.
Okay, David Sander has made a motion, seconded by Bart Hill, to appoint Amy Welch to the Trails Committee to fill a vacant seat with a term ending in 2028. Please state your name and your vote.
Bard, aye.
Adam, I.
David, I.
Caitlin, I.
And Jay, aye. Congratulations, Amy. We look forward to having you work with us.
Thank you, Amy.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda is a consideration of a request to use conservation reserve funds to possibly fund a land acquisition by the Richmond Land Trust. Now, this is a continuation of an item from the last meeting. The documents we received last time are in the packet. And there is a memo from the Richmond Land Trust also in the packet. The reason we continued this is because we had some questions last time, and unfortunately, due to no fault of their own, just scheduling happens sometimes. No member of the Land Trust was able to be here. We have 2 tonight, Brett Elliott and Wright Preston.
Who bored?
Oh, you're going to be doing it. Okay. Well, then we have 3 people here from the. But yes, we'd love to hear more about this. I think one of the questions. What? I'm sorry, Ted.
The Land Trust.
You're also okay. Everybody who's from the Land Trust. Let's see. Okay. Y'all come on up. Okay. Let's hear you. So come on up and tell us about this request. And I'm sure we'll have some questions for you.
This is a far larger group than the last time.
Yeah.
Yes, and again, sorry, we couldn't make it last time. We both had things come up at the last minute.
My daughter had a birthday party, so.
It is important.
Right, could you just move your water bottle?
Happy to. Thank you.
It's blocking the projector.
So I did submit an additional memo, which was in addition to the first application that we submitted to the Conservation Commission, which is in your packet. And we also have a letter of support from the Nature Conservancy. And I just want to briefly cover the points that I made in the additional memo, which are intended to address some of the comments that were made and questions that were raised during the last meeting when we couldn't make it. Two of the issues that came up were public access and whether or not there's a need for conservation of this parcel. And regarding public access, I would just like to note that virtually all of the land trust parcels are accessible to the public in some way. And many of them are accessible by trail, and a number of them are used quite extensively by the public. This particular parcel has never really had public access, and it's a sensitive riparian floodplain parcel. And really the primary reason why we think it needs to be preserved, in addition to the fact the public could use it, is that it's a significant parcel from an ecological standpoint and also from the standpoint of providing flood mitigation for the town. So it provides public benefits in another way besides just public access. And so again, that's our plan is not to develop trails. It's to leave the parcel in its natural condition. Not to say that people couldn't, stop by on the river and enjoy the forest, but our plan is not to develop trails. Just because I know that came up last time. There's some question about that. In terms of the need for conservation, again, these kinds of floodplain forests provide multiple natural and community benefits, including ecological stability, flood and climate resilience, flood water quality protection, wildlife connectivity and habit corridors, scenic enjoyment, and in some cases, like the parcels on the south side of the river, educational and recreational opportunities. So they really provide a multitude of benefits. And again, to clarify, this particular parcel is in the floodway. And parcels in the floodway are particularly important for slowing down floodwaters, retaining floodwater, and preventing scouring and exacerbating damage from floods downstream. So in that way, having this parcel protected and the vegetation on the parcel is important from the standpoint of providing benefits to the town and its infrastructure. I guess just finally wanted to make the point again that conserving the parcel does meet all 7 of the general criteria of the Conservation Reserve Fund policy, and as well as several of the criteria in the natural resource protection section. So that's all I had to say. Right?
Yes, this afternoon I looked at a early 1940s air photo that I had, and it depicted the river looking north. And this was one of the few floodplain forest areas that was still intact from the 27 flood. And then Overrockers across the river from it was used as a gravel mining site. So that was heavily used. But in the air photo, it clearly sustained the trees that were there, held up during the flood, and they were all there. So I don't think it's been logged in a long time. And it's not to say that a new owner wouldn't log it. There's a lot of big trees that provide a wonderful canopy, and it'd be ashamed if they were logged. So.
Just one other point. I did provide a map, again, to show how this particular parcel fits into the for the network or the fabric of conserved lands along the river that have been conserved by actually 3 different organizations, and in addition to the town-owned parcel, which is not formally conserved, but it is owned by a public entity. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how this fits into the overall picture.
Did you share this?
This is in their packet. Unfortunately, this didn't come in till today, so that's why it came in late. And I do have hard copies if any of the public would like to see a hard copy of this letter. But
you want to zoom in on that and make it a good bit bigger if we can?
Lou, which letter are you referring to?
This is a letter of support from the Nature Conservancy, which is also which is providing $7,500 of support for the project from their Vermont Biodiversity Protection Fund.
And they will be the easement folder. No, they will not be the easement. No. Okay.
Okay, questions from the board?
I just want to say thank you for the detailed memo. That was very helpful. And then I guess on the basic level, like this project meets all 7 criteria. So I don't think there's any reason the town voted to fund this reserve fund, and this meets all the criteria. This seems like a best case scenario, especially when you add in the fact that it's leveraging more than half of other funds from outside the town, so.
And also to note, the Conservation Reserve Fund overall balance right now is $334,000, but this is a minuscule part of it.
And I guess one detail I wanted to point out that Wright just brought up is we had talked about all the things that couldn't happen in there. Logging is something that can happen in the floodway in Vermont. It's highly regulated, but it's not impossible. And it's probably based on looking at like the criteria are very specific to obstruct logging. So it seems like the idea is that logging is allowed unless there is a specific reason not to allow it, which is different from many other environmental regulations in Vermont, but that is a valid reason to protect this parcel, I think. Especially pointing out that it hasn't been logged. I mean, before 89 went in, it was still logged. So this wasn't a wooded lot that was created by 89 cutting this off.
Right.
And that's an important detail.
And like our other preserves, we are taxpayers in town.
Any further questions from members of the board? Okay, Gary?
Yeah, on the question of public access, the river is a public body of water, and so we are providing public access, or the public has provided it. You know, I live at the most common takeout point there across the river from, and on a weekend day, there's at least 100 people that come down the river this year. In the first year of COVID, it was at least 300 a day that were coming down. And I think a lot of people, at least when I had young kids, when we came down, they got bored in the canoe and we would get out someplace and let them run around for a while. So this provides a place where they can get out. I own about 1,000 feet of river frontage, and as a private property owner, I love to see places where when property comes up along the river, that the land trust or somebody with a public mindset buys them for the public, because I feel it takes the pressure off the private landowners along the way that may not want to give the public on their land. And I did a rough math in my head. We're asking for roughly $1.40 a person for Richmond, a one-time expenditure to protect over 1,000 feet of forever. And the conservation fund, you know, one of the goals was to have money on hand for projects that come up that have a real short-term time frame, that we had a few months to pull this together. So I think this is exactly what people work to pass the conservation fund for.
Okay, sure.
Hi, Fritz Martin. I'm also on the Richmond Land Trust board. When we walked the property, and if anybody had an opportunity to walk the property, what we observed was, first of all, it was remarkable to see these huge mature chestnut oaks right in town. I mean, basically near town, along the river. And it's clear they've been there a long time, stabilizing the bank. It was also obvious that there wouldn't be really a good opportunity to do trail development there, because it looks regularly scoured by the floods. So it's very walkable. So it's a walkable place, huge old growth chestnut oak and other trees. And I also want to say something that Lou didn't want me to say, is that sometimes that property is strategic. I see it as maybe sometime in the future being walkable from the village. We don't have public access across the properties to get there at the moment, but like Gary was saying, you take these opportunities to get these pieces in place with the potential that it could be walkable from town later.
Okay.
Sorry, Lou.
Good point. Virginia?
Yeah, just from a planning point of view, I mean, I support this project and it meets some of the statewide goals. We have in statute now the goal of preserving 30% of the land area of Vermont by 2030. We are not there yet in terms of Richmond. So if we would like to do our part to participate in the 30 by 30 goal, every bit of more conserved land helps to fulfill that. As well as there's a statewide goal of saving mature trees and old growth forests, which have special kinds of carbon sequestration potential. So this parcel helps with both of those statewide goals, so.
Hey, is there any further? I see a hand up, Judy.
Hi, Judy Rosovsky, Chair of the Conservation Commission. An additional conservation purpose of this piece of land is it is part of a silver maple ostrich fern natural community. And on the Conservation Commission, we've been very concerned about the sort of depredations of people who are collecting ferns for food consumption on the areas that are more accessible around Richmond. So since this is a little less accessible, maybe it will help conserve that fern community. Thank you.
Judy, I'm going to ask what may seem a strange question, but it came up down near the Bombardier Meadow when we had that discussion. Are there any unique insects or rare insects that are endemic to that parcel?
I haven't looked, so I don't know, but could well be.
Okay. I know there was a population of very rare insects down at the other end of the river, so.
The tiger beetles?
Yeah.
Yep.
And how about the amphibians? Are there interesting amphibians there?
Again, because since it hasn't really been developed, there could be all sorts of surprising things in there. Be good if we did a inventory, biological
Yeah, we're
inventory.
about them crossing the road, and I-89 is right there, so.
There is a stream on the parcel that is there because there's a culvert under the railroad tracks and then the interstate. So there is somewhat of a corridor between Maple Wind Farm and the river right there, or small amphibians.
Well, it sounds like a parcel worth conserving, but I'm just 20%. Yes, go ahead.
Hey, Megan, just a question. So floodplain, lived in Richmond for 16 years. What's the likelihood that the 11.2 acres doesn't stay 11.2 acres? And I'm just wondering if that's a consideration.
I'm sorry, that doesn't.
That if flooding continues, right, that it's not possible to do any development, like in terms of buildings there because of the floodplain. So the risk of development sounds like it's logging. I'm just curious on what's the likelihood or risk of the town to have what today is 11.2 acres, but in 10 years, what is that? Has that been assessed in terms of could that land mass shrink over time?
Could it shrink?
Yeah.
The river is moving
Okay.
all the time.
Yes.
It could grow, it could shrink, and it probably will grow and shrink over time. So it's really hard to predict.
Yeah.
What might happen in the future, but the river's moving all the time.
We must gain land.
You never know.
It's about the same dimensions as it was in 1945.
Although if you, I wish we had that map, because actually there's an arm of the river that it is now blocked off. There was another island in the river, it just because it meandered up and then all of a sudden that channel was blocked. And so you can see on the parcel, there's a flood chute, which is the old, bed of the arm of the river. So it's kind of interesting because it kind of shows how the river does move over time.
Right. Well, I mean, the oxbows we see here on the north bank, those are proof if you needed any at all, that the river does move. Any further thoughts from, Kara, go ahead.
Megan, just a point of clarification. This is floodway, not floodplain, and floodways are more restricted than floodplains. Development can't occur in the floodway at all, so it can't be subdivided or anything done with that. Just that,
I don't think anyone would ever think about it.
right, so.
But yes,
It's just a point of clarification. I know how you're all gonna vote. I appreciate the Land Trust for coming tonight and actually speaking and educating the public more so on this project than the last meeting. I'm more of the catalyst, probably the executive here, so I appreciate you coming. My expression is, my point of view is just that I thought the Richmond Land Trust had a membership and an ability to raise funds outside of the Nature Conservatory and the Town of Richmond's Conservation Fund. When Richmond has given to a project before and then lost the ability to Bombardier Meadow to put in 5 parking spaces that allow the public to park and use the property as intended. I'm disappointed. And that's all I want to say. And the funds for conservation are not just solely for land. They potentially, I hope the Land Trust will support use of some of those funds on helping in this building. As a member of the town center committee, this building needs work, and this is a building that needs to be protected and conserved as well and maintained. And so that's all. And I thought that you had the ability to potentially, as everybody says, it's only $7,500, that I thought you might have the ability to do a fundraiser or raise funds through your membership. So that's why I had expressed that since this land is in floodway, couldn't be developed. Why are we using the conservation fund when you had the ability, since you're going to own it and maintain it, that you had the ability to raise those funds? That's all I was expressing. I believe in conserving land. I do support that. But I just thought we have to be very careful and cautious of the funds that we have available to us for all things around Richmond too. Thank you.
Would you like to respond to that?
Well, we are still catching our breath, and I think the community is catching its breath from the enormous fundraising we completed to complete the Gillette Pond Dam. That project was 1.1 million, and we got great support from the select boards and from both towns and the community. And we're celebrating in our minds, but we're still digesting how much money we raised locally. And
I would also point out that we are contributing cash and in-kind dollars to this project. So it's not that we're only relying on the town and the Nature Conservancy.
Thank you. Anything further, or does anybody want to make a motion at this time?
Oh, this is Adam. Make a motion, we approve the use of $7,500 from the Conservation Reserve Fund for the purchase, or to aid in the purchase of the 11.2 acres on the Winooski River.
This is David, I'll second.
Okay. So we have a motion from Adam Wood, seconded by David Sander, to approve the use of $7,500 from the Conservation Reserve Fund to partially fund the Richmond Land Trust acquisition of the 11.2 acres. Please state your name and your vote.
Bart, aye.
Adam, I.
David, I.
Caitlin, I.
And Jay, aye. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank all of you for coming.
all
I
for
apologize for not realizing I had so many members here tonight.
Thank you.
Most got it. Got the north
So
side.
the next big move is we need a.
I know, I'm reading them now.
Yeah, that's part
No, it's the 911 address of
the other parcel.
the other parcel.
11.2, so that to be exactly 11.
Until
Thank you.
It's not.
it's there.
Yeah.
Which it will.
It could go up. We could gain, but less likely.
Okay. Our next item on the agenda is discussion of the Andrews Community Forest Committee issuing a request for proposal for a copy editor for revisions to the forest management plan. Ian Stokes from the ACFC is here. Ian, would you like to come up?
I can speak to this, yes, thanks. So obviously any questions, or I can give a little background if that's helpful.
Could you give us an overview for the people who didn't read the packet?
So I think you're aware that the Andrews Community Forest Committee has been working hard to do a substantial major rewrite of the management plan based on what is it currently in effect from 2018. So we realized that we would benefit from having some help with this, both from the technical perspective of writing, but also ideally someone who can help us, who has expertise in the area of management plans for conserved lands. So the committee has considered in some length the nature of the help that we would be asking for in terms of the schedule of work. So we looked at it really from the perspective of you can have an editor who has substantial input into the content. You can have a proofreader who does the comments and the punctuation. And then in between, there's copy editor who can look critically at the content and make suggestions. And we've defined the scope of work within that context. I would say also that we're kind of working in parallel, trying to get the job done so that this request is in principle to approve the idea that this is a good way to spend the town's money. We have a draft RFP, which is with input from town manager Josh Anderson, which is in the packet. That's, I should explain, that's not a final version, but it's our working copy at this point. What really needs finalizing, apart from getting a text of management plan that we think is appropriate for putting out to a copy editor. In addition, the scope of work will be, the proposal is that we put this out for like 2 or 3 cycles of work by the copy editor, so that the first step gets the management plan into a form that's appropriate for public comment and committee and select board comment input. And then there would be, after that input, then it would, the revisions would once again go to the copy editor. So that's the last piece that needs resolving. But so at this point, we're looking for the board to approve the general concept. We're suggesting a maximum amount, and also to make suggestions about the source of funding. There seem to be 2 obvious sources of town funding, one being the Conservation Reserve Fund, the other being the funds that are like in the bank for use on the forest.
Art?
So sort of 2 questions, and I'll take it in reverse order. Have you gone to the Conservation Commission with the request?
We haven't made a request to the.
So the only thing I will say, and I'm only one of the people up here or here virtually, I, as a member of the select board, would not want to get ahead of the Conservation Commission's entertainment of a request, because it's supposed to go to them first, and then it comes with a recommendation from them to us. So I don't think we should, in terms of process, pick up the question at this point of whether the Conservation Reserve Fund should pay for this or not, because I think the starting point is the Conservation Commission. And my second point is, I was wrestling with whether copy editor is the right description of work here. Like, from my experience, a copy editor sort of takes a document that's rough and just, they go off and make it flow, make sure there's no grammatical errors. It's like they make it ready for final publication. And it sounded like you were looking for somebody who's a bit more active in the writing, where it might be more editor or author even. And that, I'm not going to get stuck on that. It was just an observation. And my only comment, or the reason I mention it, is if it goes out looking for copy editor, you may get people with a different set of skills than another term that might be more ambitious in terms of role. Maybe that's just my perception.
David, Judy.
Hi, yeah, so the Conservation Commission is aware of this request, and I was under the impression that the Conservation Commission no longer, oversees or is part of the Andrews Community Forest Committee. I thought things went directly to the select board, but we're happy to put this on our agenda for next week if the select board duly advises.
Well, are they asking you for money, right?
Unless the town wants to pay out of its own funds. I mean, it's other funds.
So back up a little bit. The item is on our agenda as looking for guidance and not a motion. Is this something we think is a good idea, and where do we think the money should come from? And so the money could come from the ACFC's own accounts or pot of money, or we could spend some conservation reserve funds on it. But at this point, does the board have an opinion? Should we get it entirely from ACFC coffers?
And what's the balance of ACFC right now?
It's
$29,500.
29,500, I understand.
So you have enough money in the fund.
That's true. Maybe in reference to the 2 points that Bart has made, was actually Josh Arneson recommended that we come to the select board at this stage to get a general approval for this concept. Well, obviously, we would come back with a more specific request after going through the process of the application to the Conservation Commission.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I do kind of echo what Bart said about the terminology. If you say copy editor, I think of that as somebody to clean up the obvious grammatical mistakes, spelling mistakes, turgid phrase, participles. Sorry, that's my English degree speaking. But I don't think it's a bad idea in principle.
Yes, but raised up the point about the scope and the qualifications of the consultant that we want to hire, and at an earlier stage of the discussion within the committee, actually the proposal was to get more of an editor. And that was maybe a year ago. We drafted an RFP with that in mind, and now we've revised to a set of tasks that would be, we believe, we understand, more appropriate for a copy editor.
Angela?
I just have a quick question for clarification. This is a revision to a forest management plan that's already written.
Yes, correct. Yeah, there is a 2018 management plan we're revising.
Who was the primary author and then the subsequent editors of the current plan that you're asking to now revise, just for historical context for myself? Who did you have to the forest management plan that we have right now?
But yeah, the revision has been worked on by the Andrews Community Forest Committee.
We don't have any.
No, who wrote the current document?
Because the current one was written.
Okay.
It's set. The forest management for logging.
Yes.
That's owned by the county forest. That's one portion of it.
Okay. So the current plan has not been finalized? From 2018, the plan that you're talking about revising right now, did that ever get finalized?
Oh, yeah. Oh, so by current plan, you mean 2018?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think we thought you meant the current draft.
No.
That, I think, was mainly written by Hannah Phillips in the committee that was charged with that at the time.
So from a historical context, my understanding is that this plan from 2018 was written by the Andrews Forest Committee with input from the county forester. They wrote their logging components to it. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Who was your copy editor then?
There wasn't, unless I understand that.
We have one writer back then.
Okay.
So we didn't really, and she was an excellent writer.
Okay.
What we have now is really a patchwork, bunch of people.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Kara? Oh, Kevin.
Probably the same thing Adam's gonna say right now is, have you used GPT, tell it to be an expert and actually have it do your revised version? I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna save yourself a lot of money and time, and it will take you literally 10 minutes to get a version that would be acceptable for the public to view. Having used it frequently for major projects and having a draft version of projects to have it do just that. And sometimes you have to keep tweaking it and telling it you're an expert in this, or you're an expert with forest management, all of these different expertise that you're bringing into GPT. It's an amazing tool to use, and I would really hate for you to spend money that you could be spending for the forest management on something as simple as using AI to do what you're really trying to do.
Yeah, I can respond by saying that at least one member of the committee has experimented with artificial intelligence packages. I think ChatGPT on sections of the draft management plan, and that has been helpful. But it's
something that we sort of use in an advisory sense rather than definitive revisions.
If you don't use it often, the tweaking of the plan and stuff like that is takes a little bit more time to get what you want. But I'm telling you, you could load the whole plan and you could have tweaks done to it, and then you could tell it to be either more conservative in a certain area, or, you know, be more observant of certain species or things like that. So I really think I strongly advise you to consider doing that.
Okay, so I'm going to speak on behalf of Caitlin, who is sick. Caitlin Filkins, that's what she does for a living, is look for ways to use AI in various processes. And she's said in the past that she would not use ChatGPT specifically for such purposes, but that there are other AI tools that can also be used. But it's not a bad idea for a little polish, but the subject matter expertise, ChatGPT could give you advice that looks perfectly sane until you find out that the thing that just told you to do doesn't actually exist. So I would take it with a grain of salt, but it is an idea worth just, you have nothing to lose. Throw it in there and see what you get.
I apologize, Jay. An AI tool, I don't use ChatGPT as my AI tool, but that was an example.
Okay.
I actually wasn't gonna, I was just gonna say, I think just purely from the mechanically for the RFP process, we can't approve any money until we have actual proposals in front of us. So I think we can give you like direction to say that we would think that the RFP process is worthwhile, but we're not gonna allocate any money. I don't think we even can until we have proposals. Okay.
At this point, this is advisory. Do we think it's a good idea? Do we have any objection to spending money from pot A and pot B? But we would then look for them to do an RFP, generate bids, and then it would come back to us to accept one of the bids. So I think, I see Chelsea, go ahead.
Chelsea Brooks, I just have a quick question. So my understanding of actually listening to some community forest meetings where you guys were discussing this was that you're not looking for, right, like a subject matter expert. The committee is the subject matter expert. You're looking for somebody to make sure, as they said, it flows and just sort of polish it for public consumption. Where are you guys in the process? Like, do you have the committee here's our rough draft management plan. We're ready to just like send it off to the copy editor. Where are we in that process? Close?
A month. Yeah.
Okay, because I was just curious as far as timing, like, are we gonna get, are these RFPs and we're still 6 months, 8 months out? We're close. Okay. Thank you.
I could say that I think at every recent monthly meeting, we have put a draft management plan into the packet. So it's been available. It's about 50 pages long.
Yeah.
There are additionally appendices that go with it.
Yeah, I've seen them. I just wasn't sure, like, at what point you guys are set, like, right, at what point is this your draft? I wasn't sure sort of where you were in the.
We're trying to overlap it a little bit, work on this, get this concept down, not actually ask for allocation, just, run the concept by while we're finishing up the last part and try to gain about a month. So we do this in September.
Okay.
We'll be back.
So is there anyone on the board who thinks they should not proceed with the RFP? Okay, then it sounds like go ahead, get the RFP, and we'll be happy to look at the bids.
Good, thank you.
Jay, do you want to, there was a second part of this, the direction about money. Do we want to address that now or leave that sit until we?
have no objection to discussing it.
That being a roughly equal division between the two potential sources. If my hearing is terrible, so I may have missed that.
Which part? I don't.
What's the source of funds? My first thought, my initial response is the Andrews Community Forest Fund, because that's what it's for. But I don't know what your thinking was other than to save your money for something else.
I think the thought was to Conservation Reserve Fund for 50% of it and the Andrews Community Forest for 50% of it, so that we can have funds in the Andrews, some funds remaining in the Andrews Community Forest for physical work with respect to trails, trail maintenance, and other costs that come along.
Aren't those also potentially fundable from the Conservation Reserve Fund?
Of course.
So it seems it's sort of arbitrary at any point in time, whether it's the Community Forest Fund or the Conservation Reserve Fund.
Therefore, I think it would be helpful for you to give us advice. Without, maybe you don't need to vote, but say, or maybe you do vote, 50-50 or 75-25 or 100 or something.
If you'd
So
like to
that
do
we
a
can
census,
create
like
an
a
application.
Why don't just people speak what their opinions are?
I tend toward use the ACFC. I mean, as you said, that's what it's there for.
That's where I tend to lean as well. I don't know.
I think that makes sense.
Okay. And if we change our mind between now and then, we're not locked in. If there comes up with a compelling reason to use the tennis fund on it, for example. We have a tennis fund with like $155 in it. It's been there for a long time.
Jay, we might also ask Judy if she has any input or comments on this at this point. I know it's a little perhaps premature, but.
There is precedent for the RCC paying for the management plan, because remember, we originally hired the SEG folks to write the original management plan. We paid them $4,500. But yes, so we're certainly happy to support that. I mean, the select board could come up with criteria for when you
If you're gonna
use.
play a card game, let's do it right now because it's almost bedtime for you.
The select board might want to have criteria for when you use the one fund over the other. I agree that, the RCCs can certainly be used for trail maintenance and conservation purposes, but the management plan does have a conservation element, so it is appropriate to use that money. But it's really up to you all.
Right?
The current, the sources for the Andrews Community Forest are 12 grand that came in from the utility right of way from last February, March. And then the other was logging that was done 2 or 3 years ago. And then I think there was some in the fund, a little bit in the fund before that. So much of the money that's in the fund is quite recent. It's not been there all that long.
Hey, Kara?
Thank you. I'd like you to consider using the Andrews Fund for it, because it is the sole property that can use that fund. It's not like you can use the Andrews Fund on any other conserved land in Richmond. You couldn't use it to give them the $7,500 for the parcel that was just purchased by the Land Trust. I would like you to use Andrews money on the Andrews property, and if it ends up running out and they end up logging more in the future to bring in more revenue for that, or they then have to go to the conservation fund, it's a sound place, what you all just said, to use the Andrews money for the Andrews.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so I think we're all set for now. Like I said, we'll look forward to hearing from you.
And we will return.
Thank you.
With a formal request in due course.
Okay. So we have a couple items on the agenda back to back that pertain to the Southview 3-acre situation. The first is consideration of approving an agreement with Watershed Consulting to complete the notice of intent for the Southview 3-acre permit. Discussion of the permit will come next. This is simply agreeing to pay for the engineering that has been done, will be done. Are you?
Jay, it seems fair to me to describe these as interrelated topics. That there are implications for doing the agreement and the notice of intent absent of homeowners association or any vehicle by which homeowners might contribute their share of funding for this. And I'll say we got advice way back when to not go down this notice of intent, right?
That's a good point to bring up, but that really addresses more the second item.
But I think it's related to the first,
Okay.
because if we do the notice of intent, or if we spend money on completing the notice of intent, it doesn't make sense to do that if we're not pursuing the notice of
Okay,
intent.
that's a good. So now that I get what you're saying, so our attorney, we'll get to you in a little bit. The town attorney, well, one of our town attorneys advised us strongly not to proceed with this because of the fear that we would be left on the hook because there is no homeowners association or any other legal entity up there to handle part of the responsibility. And the town government does not want to be stuck with the entire cost of the project. Greystone, which also has a stormwater situation, is doing it because they do have a homeowners association. We have an agreement to be discussed a little later on for paying for the town share and them paying for their share. But without having a homeowners association or stormwater management association of some kind up in Southview, we actually cannot complete the permit unless we're willing to take on 100% of the responsibility for the town. And that is the quandary that we're up against, because as soon as we say we will take on all the legal responsibility, any incentive that Southview residents have to come in with us is pretty much gone. And some might say, well, we can still charge them for it. We can still do a special assessment district. As I mentioned at the last meeting, the recently passed legislation says we can only demand money from that area if 50%, if a majority of the landowners agree to it. So if we complete the notice of intent and we go ahead and send it in, we are in a very bad situation. It's not that I resent the people at Southview. They were handed a very bad deal. You guys should not have been stuck with this in the first place. But we could wind up with Greystone paying 50-50, or not exactly that, for theirs, but then the entire town would be paying for Southview's. And that's the thing that's the legal thing that our attorney advised us very strongly not to get into. One of the options that's been discussed is if we don't complete the notice of intent, we lose the grant money. We wind up eating the cost of the engineering ourselves. And on the other hand, what we wind up getting from that is that we don't wind up on the hook for the entire thing. So it's two options: complete the notice of intent and find ourselves painted into a corner as far as legal responsibility, or not complete the notice of intent, lose the grant money, but stall for time until the state gives us better guidance.
Jay, I'd also add that when we talked about accepting grant money, there was an overt conversation of saying, we are not the sole notice of intent party. And that this was going to be sort of free money. We weren't going to have to contribute other taxpayer money. It seemed a painless thing. Oh, we'll sign the grant agreement. We'll get the 30,000. It won't have any implications for the future, and it won't have additional funds for the engineering. And now, based on the communication from the state, they're saying, oh, you can't do it halfway. Whoever signs it is on the hook. And we have a request for additional funds for which the only funding source is the town. So it seems to me we are at a fork in the road. Do we keep going down this road where the town spends town money and takes more responsibility?
And risk.
And, well, risk, it's just ownership. Now we own it. Or do we say, because I'll just say as one member of the board, that's a really different deal than we thought we were signing up for when we decided to accept the grant funds.
And so a document I've just popped up on the screen is a communication from the Watershed Management Division Stormwater Program. In other words, these are the people where the buck stops. And I'll read it out loud. If the town will not be taking full legal responsibility for the stormwater management system as a single entity, the owners need to be a co-applicant and formally apply for permit coverage as such, because they own the impervious surfaces on their private lands that are subject to the permit coverage. If the private lot owners do not wish to form an owners association, they could apply as another type of legal entity accepting responsibility for the stormwater system. We cannot rely on reference to a town letter stating that the town should not be considered the sole permittee when no other entity representative of the privately owned impervious services would be on the notice of intent and signing on as applying for permit coverage, resulting in the permit authorization having only the town listed as a sole applicant.
So I don't want to accuse the state employees of any, manipulation or malfeasance, but very clearly we went into this like our submission was, we're not going to be the only people. And now having accepted the grant, they come around and say, you are the only people, you bought it, you own it.
We haven't fought it yet.
Well, the $30,000. And so if we back away from the notice of intent, you back away from the money and you have to pay back the money.
Right.
So I think the narrow choice is, do we say we're going to eat the $30,000 and stop the presses on the engineering work? Or are we going to accept responsibility by the town for all the work? In the state's eyes, it's the town that owns it. As soon as we submit the notice of intent, we're the sole permittee. And from the beginning, they didn't care about how it was paid for. They very clearly wanted a town to just take responsibility. You guys deal with it. That was the overt conversation we had in the very beginning. And it's why our attorney said, turn off the light, shut the door, don't talk to them about it, because they're just going to hold you responsible for it later. And here we are.
So to return back to the item on the agenda is essentially the agreement to pay for Watershed Consulting to complete the notice of intent. And Bard's point, if I can paraphrase, is why would we want to do that if we're not going forward?
Or approving that has implications for the notice of intent. It has implications first for additional money that's 100% town funds for what's ostensibly a joint project. Then it leads to a notice of intent with sole permittee where the town is on the hook for managing and paying for everything unless we make some other arrangement. And what that other arrangement would be is not clear to me.
And one last datum that I think we should mention. Those of us who went and testified before the Senate committee will recall that we all stressed the legal bind of having no association. And would the state please give us help? And their idea of help was the thing about we can't do anything unless the homeowners vote for it, and that they would try to provide guidance for those areas that don't have a homeowners association in a couple of years. And they extended the deadline too, so this is not as on fire as it was, but we have a document that came in mailed to Josh from the same gentleman, Terry Purcell, noting that there are several sites here in the state, Barry Town, Swanton, Georgia, Newport City, they're in the same situation we are with orphaned permits, that there's no one willing to step forward and say, we'll be the association. So this is not a Richmond only problem. And I do think the state owes us that guidance because we got stuck with the check. So I've held forth, Bart's held forth. Are there members of the public tonight who would like to speak to this? Because we've got a whole bunch of you here. Oh, Sarah, you've got your hand up. I'm so sorry. I neglected this. Sarah, go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Jay. This is Sarah Heim, Southview resident. So I just wanted to let you know that last Thursday, I sent Terry Purcell an email that was following up to the email exchange he had with Josh, asking if just for purposes of the ARPA grant, if they would essentially consider like an incomplete application that doesn't include the homeowners just for ARPA grant purposes to secure that money, but while also sort of holding the rest in abeyance, so to speak, without also having the town take full responsibility from it. I haven't gotten a response from him, but some of the points I made in the email was that the legislature clearly intended to give us a longer runway to figure this stuff out. They extended the compliance deadline by 3 years. They directed DEC to issue guidance for neighborhoods like ours, and that's not even required to be published until January 2027. And so, I pointed out it just doesn't really make sense to give us an October 1 deadline to figure out what to do when all the other deadlines have been extended by the legislature to give us more time and to get guidance from DEC. So I haven't heard back from Terry yet. And I was just focused very much on the ARPA funding aspect of it. Like, is there anything we can do to secure that funding without having to reach this ultimate issue of like, who's responsible and is there an HOA? And as soon as I hear back from him, I will forward that on. I did CC Josh on the email as well.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Andres, I see you have turned on your camera. Was there something you would like to help provide?
Yeah, I would. I just, in reference to the supplemental scope that I provided Josh and the board, just to clarify one point, Josh and I had kind of discussed, so we had the site walk on July 22nd with the homeowners. And after that, we were kind of set forth on a path to respond to the comments, the good comments that were put forward from the homeowners, and make some revisions and basically bring the plans to a point where we're still considering them rough drafts where they are right now. But there has been a significant amount of work that was done after, that last meeting with the homeowners. And that's kind of reflected in this scope. So I guess it's just short to say that there's work within this scope that you're weighing tonight that's already kind of been done at this point, because we were kind of moving ahead with the understanding that if the board decided to do, that they wanted to file on time, we're really out of time at this point, even though the state has given October 1st. I'm recommending that it goes in at the end of this month, just to allow for the time that the state is going to get a huge flood of applications next month. So I just wanted to make that clear. And, really at this point, the plans are, I think, in a really good place, and but they're still certainly draft. The analysis is still draft, and they're not to a point where we would consider them a final design plan. There's still a lot of details and engineering that would need to be done. And that's even an additional phase from what I'm presenting to you here to get to that point. So really with this scope, we were just trying to get to you a place where there's a checkpoint that, you have a design, it should work well. It still needs some refinement, but it's to a point where we could submit those pieces and hopefully get that administratively complete approval. But I understand now this email response from Terry throws a little bit of a wrench into that in terms of the administrative part of it. But technically, we had all the, we were working to assemble all the components to allow you to submit.
Bart?
So this is Bart. I totally understand, and sort of this one of those situations where what you see depends on where you sit. So thanks for that, because it's an insight into what you see from where you sit.
Yeah.
And I guess, it strikes me that one of the things we'll have to contemplate is to what degree you've engaged in work that wasn't covered by the original grant and what we do about that. Depending on the outcome of tonight's conversation, I would say if you're planning on doing work tomorrow on this, you should probably wait until the conversation is over. Because, the implication, and this is not your problem, but it appears to me that the state's desire is have somebody own it, the town will own it, that's great. They don't care about who pays for it, but we do. And from where I sit, the issue is not just Southview, but equity for the other 3-acre parcels in town, including Greystone and the mobile home park, actually. There's other places where people are situated and the town is not paying for their engineering or construction. And so that's one of my challenges, trying to represent all the taxpayers and residents of town and treating them comparably and equitably. And frankly, it was my perception based on our conversation when we like supported the grant that we were going to be capped at $30,000. So there was no town funds going in beyond that. And that we were going to submit an NOI that had a disclaimer. Now, both of those facts turn out not to be true. It is more than $30,000. And it is unacceptable to submit the notice of intent that we discussed. So, and you don't need to answer this now, but I guess one of the questions that Josh and the select board will have to wrestle with is how much has been spent based on verbal agreements, so to speak, above the grant funds, so we know what your costs and our exposure is as of 8:30 on August 4th, 2025.
Right. Well, the initial phase of work that the board did approve is over the 30,000. So the board signed off on 32,600. So we ended kind of phase one within that 10%. We basically had this was a time and materials with a 10% overage allowance, and so we ended that phase within that overage. I think it was around 33.5 or something like that. So that has not all been billed through. Some of the survey work has not been billed through. But then, some of the additional services was the task one in the proposal that I gave the board or Josh a few days ago was the July 22nd meeting, and then basically responding to that and making some plan adjustments and doing some additional survey. I had talked with Josh about the need to do some additional survey a few days ago before he left town. And so that was done. And so the plans were then updated, which I think overall, we now have a much better plan. So, I appreciate all that feedback from that meeting, but that's kind of where we're at. And I don't have a total to give you right now, but, we have spend some additional funds toward that phase two scope that you're looking at.
Sounds like an internal.
Adam?
Sounds like an internal town problem on the financial side, so deal with that separately.
Well, I think the work to date is an internal issue separately, but where we go from here, maybe we go back to that conversation.
Yeah.
Are we going to continue down the path of the NOI with the town as the sole party?
You all know who I am, but Paige Kalita. I'll make a few comments on the permit and there's some correspondence from Terry Purcell where Josh asked how many non-HOA sites there are around the state. I believe there's 18.
Oh, that's even more than I heard.
That's the figure I remember as well.
Yeah, it's in some of the documents from on the agenda. I could find which one if you want, but he also admitted that very few of them are doing anything. There's a couple in Barry, but the town of Barry or the city of Barry, I'm not quite sure, is handling it completely and I think paying for the whole thing. So there's one like Jersey Heights or something in Morrisville, which was a public-private partnership the state came up with to show us all how we can work together and do this, and they paid for a big portion of it. And so it just, obviously, this is incredibly frustrating for me because I feel like we're playing along, we're doing what they're asking, and then they're saying, sorry, we're trying to comply and they're making it impossible. There's no way, even if we could get our neighborhood to agree to make an HOA or some sort of legal entity, we can't do it by the end of the month. And we never knew about this till less than a year ago. And it blows my mind the state never sent us a letter. Had they sent us a letter and we knew about this, maybe we could have complied and come up with some legal entity or an HOA by now. But they just decided they didn't need to do that. My other question is, who decides on that deadline of that all this has to be in? It's probably in some legalese within the grant, but why can't they extend that? Whose jurisdiction is that? Hopefully we'll hear back from Terry. Another thing I've done in a little bit of my research, and I said this a few minutes ago, but in some circumstances, like the town of Barry is paying for this with some of their neighborhoods. The town of South Burlington has a stormwater utility. They go out and get grants and pay for or cover a lot of the costs. So the inequity around the state based on where you live is just crazy because, in my circumstance, five houses down, they don't have to do this. If I lived in South Burlington, maybe a lot of it would be covered because there's a stormwater utility. Another thing, and I've said this quite a few times, the mobile home park falls under a different program, and they have, I think they can get like a $250,000 grant for this. I looked up the Richmond Mobile Home Park Review Commons, and they are in the process of doing it. I couldn't find any information of whether they got the grant or not, but the corporation that owns the park is doing the work.
Okay.
And applied for it. I'd like to ask Andre a couple questions. There's a document, it's called the Southview 3G3. I don't know if you guys could pull that up possibly.
3G3?
Yeah.
Yep.
Go to the last page. It's like page 29. One down more. That picture is not of a house that's not within the 3-acre site.
Oh.
You scroll up one. I don't believe that one is. Scroll up another one. I don't believe that one is. So I have some concerns about now hearing that we have some overages. And time is spent, obviously, this is up in Hidden Pines. This isn't even like next door to the 3-acre area. So, we're now over budget on this, but are you surveying properties that aren't within the 3-acre site?
So no, so just to kind of back up a little bit on kind of what the purpose of this was. So this, if you scroll back up to the top where all the points are, and Paige, I got your email today. I was going to try to explain this to you tonight at the meeting.
Okay.
But yeah, just scroll down one just to the figure. So really, this was just what Josh had asked us to do was just put basically just a little bit of foundation in terms of how this whole disconnection analysis was done, because I know that there were a lot of questions, at the meeting on the 22nd. And so, this was really just to kind of illustrate that really there was a comprehensive assessment that was done. And if there were some photos of some sites that were not specifically part of the 3-acre, I don't know exactly where those photos that you were referencing specifically. We could certainly take a look at that, but I can tell you that we kind of went over this in quite a bit of detail after that meeting, and made some adjustments to it. I had said at the time it was a draft. I think it's still draft, but I think it is a lot better, a lot cleaner than it was. And I just think that the disconnection conditions at the site are really not ideal. However, we did, find quite a significant amount, but mostly driveways, not really rooftops. And it's really just because of the way that the slopes kind of drop off pretty steeply. But the team was out, they did a comprehensive look. All these points right here are just kind of notations of, basically starting at the desktop level. And then we went out in the field, and then basically the work that was done after that July 22nd meeting was to confirm a lot of work that was done in the field, again, on the desktop using a lot of our, the LiDAR topography, the drone footage that we collected. And so at this point, I think we do have a pretty comprehensive look at the disconnection, but I think what I just wanted to describe, and I don't know if this is the right point to kind of go into this about the disconnection, but I wanted to kind of describe kind of the reasons for doing the disconnection, maybe the reasons to be very careful and especially conservative with the disconnection, that I don't really think I got into at the meeting, but I think it's important for people to understand this as we kind of move ahead. So I don't know if this is the time to do that or not, but.
Well, we've got three things on the agenda. One, do we proceed with the notice of intent? Two, two, review of the updated plans. Follow up on the question if the proposed stormwater structures contain PFAS and follow up on the disconnection analysis. And then three, discussing the whole quandary of the sole permittee. So we have not got a motion in place to proceed or not with a notice of intent. But while we're continuing to think about that, sure, let's go ahead and review the updated plans.
Right, let's do that. And then I think within the context of doing that, I think I can answer a lot of the questions that Paige is raising about the.
Okay.
I have a few more. Do you want me to
Go
ask
ahead.
them now or, okay. So on this document that you have in the letter, it references on the page above this and then the page below it that there were two properties where you were denied access, and it says they're the blue dot properties.
Yep.
Who, you don't need to identify who they are, but how were you denied access?
Well, I received a call and an email from one of them, being very clear that, we were not allowed on the property. And then the second.
Okay, so are they the two large blue dots?
I believe so, yeah.
All right, well, I've spoken with both of those neighbors and they say neither of them did. They were actually both looking forward to you visiting. So, I think you all have done great work, but I have some real concerns. And then my next question is, when I look at this and the disconnection, so in my particular property, and I've looked at several on here, it shows green dots that my driveway should be disconnected, but then on other things, it shows that it doesn't. So it's just kind of that.
Right. So I guess to respond to your first question, I'm looking at the email right now that was sent to me, and I received the call as well at night. So if the dot is not maybe exactly in that spot, I mean, I did look at it today, and I think it is pretty close to where that was. But regardless, we did receive those two. So
I think I know who it was, and it's on the other side of the neighborhood, but I mean, I don't want you to have to divulge who it was, but the two dots, one of them's right next door to me and the other one's a very good friend, and they're all on Joan Ave, and they're all people that I know, like the two, you can zoom in and figure out which property is, and both of them said they did not do that.
Right. Well,
there's some confusion going on. We have that, we have pictures of properties up in Hidden Pines. We have discrepancy on the disconnection. Some maps show some stuff is disconnected. My other map shows the exact opposite. And it's, and I don't mean to hammer down on this disconnection thing, but our understanding based on the correspondence was, it says, I can pull it up, but there was a document where you said, you'll come and look at where all the gutters, flow out to, but you didn't walk around houses and look at gutters. I mean, there's
right.
So I guess, and I understand that we have to walk a fine line between the disconnection and then the state accepting the permit. But, I know what my driveway does, and it all flows into the lawn because I have to rake the gravel out of it every year if it gets sanded or salted. So, in here it shows it's disconnected, but the thing you shared today, the updated disconnection shows the exact opposite. So.
Right, so,
I-
well, if I may explain, so as I was saying, I think that there's kind of multiple steps in doing this, so one is, as I was saying, doing the desktop work and then following up in the field and then actually coming back to the desktop. So if there's some discrepancy that you're talking about, it could be that after doing the field work, maybe that point was not translated back to the, in the desktop analysis, maybe there's a point that needs some correction. Certainly possible. I guess
Can we
what I
open,
would, hold on, if I just finish
sure.
this one thought. I'd like to show, I guess, the board and everybody the kind of the updated plan because I'm concerned. I don't want people to get too hung up on this because even if the disconnection was very favorable, which it sounds like maybe you're pushing for maybe more disconnection, you still really would not be changing the fact that we have to do some management of the road. And I think I was describing that on site, is that the road
So
itself.
I understand that,
Yeah.
if we get another 5% disconnection, it's not gonna have any real impact on the cost.
Right, it won't.
But
And
my faith in this process is getting less and less.
and you also, this is just to explain to you that you can't within the collection area of the chambers, we're not counting those disconnection areas because essentially we're not able to kind of double count the treatment. And I guess this is just the important point that I was trying to get to is that I think the homeowners need to understand that a disconnection, it's a non-structural type practice, right? So it's a little bit different than say a rain garden. However, it's still an encumbrance on your property. So, Paige, if you have a disconnection, in your backyard, that will be highlighted forever in the permit. And so that is going to be something that encumbers your property. And if you look at the manual with respect to what is required for a disconnection, you need to keep it uncompacted, you need to keep it vegetated, you need to keep it as a uniform slope across that disconnection area. So anybody that's going to in the future, say, build a patio or a pool will then impact that encumbered area. And so I think that that's a really important note, and it's just illustrates why when we do these disconnections, we're very deliberate in doing them to areas where we really feel like there's going to be a low chance of impact. So we wouldn't necessarily like to identify one of these areas right adjacent to a house, in a backyard, because they are encumbrances. And in my professional opinion, it's a much better solution to rely on the drainage system, the treatment system, which is in the road right of way, in the public right of way, versus having these areas identified, on people's lots that are encumbered forever. And you will be, there'll be a map in the file with these disconnection areas, and they kind of need to be maintained. So I think it's just an important note for people to understand as they're kind of pushing for more of these disconnection areas. I think they have a purpose. I think we want to use them if they exist, but I don't think we really want to push the envelope with them. And that's just kind of my professional opinion about it.
Can you open up 3G4? I
If we
have
could
one
just,
more question. if you don't
oh,
mind.
okay,
And then you would love to hear about the new plan.
sure.
I won't waste any more of your time.
But you're not wasting it.
No, it's okay. This is all good. I'm glad. I really, I wanted to kind of
Scroll
explain this, so it's
in
good.
and see where it says DA1A.
Yep.
And then we're gonna look at the pink houses, the second one from the cul-de-sac on the bottom left.
Yep,
You have the back half of that roof disconnected.
right.
Like, why is that roof disconnected and not any others?
Well, without looking at the data, I don't remember that specific roof, but all of those houses along that side have, quite a bit of slope. And I think for that particular area, the team just saw that there was, relatively a different scenario right there, a different grade that would allow that disconnection, whether, the roof drain or whatever, where it is located, just lent to that, the ability to just basically claim it. But all of those other ones are, it's quite steep. Everything kind of drains right back from the road, back behind the houses. And that's why they're all pink.
And then why are like the next two driveways disconnected? And then
So-
if you go past like below DA 4B, like those are disconnected. Like
Yeah,
those-
that's a good
they're sort of
question.
flat, But there's other ones that are flat and they're not.
Right, right. Well, it's not just the flat. So you also, what the team looks for is, a lot of times with driveways, the runoff actually gets channeled down the road and it ends up, or excuse me, down the driveway, and then it ends up kind of running into the road. So instead of a crown situation where you might have the sheet flow to either side, I think the team was seeing that the driveway actually is, the water flow is not going horizontally off, but rather down the driveway. So this is just, the cases where they're yellow, I think they were seeing that sheet flow condition off the side. But the other ones seeing more so the water just kind of flowing down into the road or off somewhere else to where maybe it was more concentrated into like a concentrated area.
Okay, so just my last comment that I'm in the upper right corner, sort of just up off of DA3, and there's sort of a little, my portion of my shared driveway is disconnected. And the other part is initially was on your desktop version, and that's the property that is marked as denied access. And
Right.
they're not denied access, and I know that, I'm pretty sure the Hubbards are on the Zoom, so they could confirm that. Thanks.
Yeah, if I could, this is Mark Hubbard. I was actually looking forward to you guys visiting. I'm an engineer myself, and I did not get any kind of notification. I'm here every day, and I understand that I was allegedly denied you guys access, and that's not the case at all. Over.
Yeah, so the notes that I was reading in the survey back today said undeniably, no question, no access until after the week of, I think it was May 5th. And so maybe, Mark, there was some confusion whether maybe that wasn't you, maybe the dot is in the wrong spot. I can, confirm that after tonight. I guess I'm just saying that there are two homes where it was very clear we could not access when we were trying to do the disconnection. So I can certainly clear that up. And what I would say is, again, this is draft. I think there would be another pass through to kind of firm it up before you would, at the time of doing a final plan. And at that point in time, your house would be on the list if you're welcome, available to do it, and we would figure it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Forward to that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is Dana
Oh, I'm
Bianchi. Sorry, I was trying to raise my hand. The dot's on our property too, and I guess I don't, my wife or neither of us. My daughter's here most of the time. I don't know how someone said you couldn't come. I sent a letter. I believe we have some disconnection. I filled out the survey, so I'm confused. So maybe the dots are on the wrong properties.
So I think just to again clarify one thing, that the disconnection work was not intended to kind of be encompassing around. It was a combination of
That's
desktop
fine.
work and sorry.
That's fine. My point is, we didn't tell people they could come on the property. If I sent an email, please, after this meeting, point that out to me.
Okay, we have a question here in the room. Kara, go ahead.
It's not a question for Andres, it's to make a comment to the select board. I was in the library meeting when your town attorney told you to stay out of this, the best interest of the town to not get involved at this point in time, especially with the states being so unknowing of what direction that they were heading, including don't accept the grant because you're tying yourself into some things that you don't need. Just the word encumbrances on private property should tell you get out and get out now. If they can't even create a homeowners association that's in their deed, you're going to potentially harm some of them, whereas some of them speak up and others don't. And we don't know which dots and disconnections and all that's going on. I'm very, very concerned that we're heading down a path that other communities, there's 18 other non-HOHs that you guys mentioned. We don't have to be the first
we can let others lead the way so that we can learn from their experiences. I think we're learning from our own right now. And I think I'm speaking on behalf of other taxpayers who don't want to have to pay for Greystones or the Caterpillar dealership who has a 3-acre, or the mobile home park, which is a private mobile home park, which might not qualify the same way as a member-owned mobile home park or a state. So, thank you. I hope you listen to your town attorney.
Hey, Paige?
It's every mobile home park in the state. Doesn't matter if they're private or whatever. Cat's a dealer, there's like the Walmart would have to do this. I would like to point out that, we cannot apply for this without the town. Town has to be a partner in this because of the roads and our properties are encumbered. So if I want to sell my property, I either won't be able to sell it because people are going to say, well, why would I buy into this? Or I would probably have to put money in escrow to deal with this unknown cost. And I did some napkin math, and everyone in Richmond is on the hook for the public roads in Greystone and Richmond and Southview. And it's probably about $400,000 of all of our tax dollars. So we should all be stop about this.
Oh, I'm not saying I'm not. I'm not saying I'm not.
Okay. Okay, Thomas? Thomas?
We lost Thomas.
Sorry. Paige basically said what I was going to say, but the part for me that rings true is like if I'm a resident here on Westall Drive. If I wanted to comply, if I wanted to do everything possible to keep a lien from being placed on my property, I am powerless to prevent that. The town is the only entity that has the ability to satisfy the state here for the reasons mentioned. If we had been told 4 years ago, we could have taken the time and perhaps done that. But I am certain that there are members of our neighborhood that don't even know this situation exists. The idea that we're going to get some sort of collaborative consensus is pretty tough to imagine, but I'm also very uncomfortable with the idea of, hey, let's be the first to let them put liens on these 40 residents' homes and see what happens. Someone may want to sell, someone, that is a problem of a different type that the town of Richmond is then welcoming in by doing nothing. And I don't have a solution. I mean, this just flat out stinks for everyone.
Totally agree.
Yeah, it's not.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's all for me. Thanks.
Okay, so agenda wise, we have been giving people a chance to be heard, but the only actual agenda item that requires a motion is whether to continue with the NOI. We do, however, I see the hands up. We do, however, we've been putting off Andres, who has been saying, I'd like to go over the plans. And before we take any more questions, I really like to give Andres a chance to go over the revised plans, and then we'll take more questions.
Great.
I know that, but I'm the chair, we're moving on, we'll come back to her. So Andres has been being told for the last 20 minutes, we're going to give him a chance to look at the plans. So Andres, go ahead and tell us about the updates to the plans.
Sure. So I'd like to think this is the good news for folks. I think that, we listened to what people had said at the meeting and kind of the discussions, and I think it was actually a very productive meeting overall, and I appreciate everybody, in the community coming out and adding the input. So what we ended up doing was basically we were able to eliminate one of the chamber systems. So chamber 1 over on Westall Drive, after I took a closer look at kind of the drainage conditions, there's a unique situation over there where pretty much everything is kind of being contained within the drainage system. In the way that, I don't know that it was originally designed that way, but the way it's functioning currently, we were able to, model that out. And I think that there is some justification to say that because that condition exists, the system is kind of functioning to a level right now that would otherwise be required under the 3-acre rule. So obviously it's never a set thing until it passes technical review, but I do think that there's some good justification to provide that. So I would be recommending that, you go ahead and try to make that justification. So with that, we were able to eliminate that one chamber entirely. And so what we ended up doing was, we're looking at the chamber that was previously number 4. It's now been relabeled as number 1. We looked at this in a number of different ways. One of the suggestions at the site visit was looking at trying to place this on the southwest corner of the intersection. We actually looked really hard at that. We ended up doing an engineering proof. It doesn't work well at all to do that. So we abandoned that option. And we decided to keep the chamber where it is. But what we ended up doing was we ended up proposing a pipe collection system it's right off at the end of the screen. It's on the left side. You can see there's a catch basin in the swale, and there's actually one on either side. So I think the gentleman's name was Tom, who was concerned about all the erosion going into the ditch on the south side of the road. We're picking that up. So that would be remedied with this design solution. So this system is designed to pick up a lot more water from basically the west side of the drainage way. Before, it was a much smaller system. It's designed to basically collect a larger area. So that was really the primary change with the revised plans. The other system at the loop really stayed the same, and then the final system, the last system that we looked at on our walk down below, also stayed the same. So now there's basically 3 systems instead of 4.
Tom, did you have any questions for Andres regarding the revisions?
Okay. Okay, Andres, sounds good. Let's keep going.
Okay. In terms of plan revisions, I mean, that's really the highlight right there.
Okay.
We have to
And-
give a legal cost. Save about 100,000 maybe.
Did you get that, Andre? How would this affect the cost?
Can't say for sure. I mean, it would lower the cost, obviously, because it would be three chambers versus 4. This system has some additional costs because it has some additional catch, piping and catch basins. And I haven't figured out what the revised cost would be for this. But I do think I can tell you this, it's a lot cheaper to maintain 3 versus 4. So I think in the long run, the operation and maintenance costs, the inspection costs, all that is going to be less. And I think it's just less impact on the homeowner, the development in general, given that, the construction obviously impacts, are going to be significantly less too, because you're not going to be, ripping up a 4th site.
Okay, now we'll take questions, comments. Anybody wants to go ahead?
Thanks, Chelsea Brooks. So, sorry, I'm jumping in at the end of all this after my original train of thought. So please excuse me if I sort of circle back
It's
to
okay.
things that we talked about earlier. It was mentioned that we sort of signed up, right, for something that we bit off, not what we intended to chew with this grant. And unfortunately, that's not my personal impression. I think that this state has been throughout this whole process, and that's why the lawyer's advice has been such as it has, that they've been pretty clear this whole time that if there's no homeowners association or they don't form one, then either the town has to take full responsibility or you just don't do it and you're left in this limbo. And I think we sort of knew that heading into this grant application, but there was anticipation of legislative change, right? So we had sort of this urgency to apply for this grant to get the engineering done so that we could get the ball rolling because people were being threatened with liens. And I think that veering from that advice has left us in this situation that we're in. There's not a homeowners association. There are covenants in the deeds, but I would presume that the town's lawyer has advised you on whether or not that holds any salt, right? Like if the town's lawyer thought it did, I'm sure that you would have pursued that by now. So therefore that's kind of dead in the water. And additionally, I want to address the fact that the town as a whole knew about this earlier than Paige mentioned. Like September 5th, 23 select board meetings, this was on the agenda. It was the advice of the lawyer back then as well. Don't do it, don't pursue it, leave it alone. And that's what was done. And so I think that at this point, my very strong opinion is to leave it, cut our losses. Like, I don't want to say that really, because right, $30,000 of grant money is a lot of money. I'm a taxpayer in Richmond. I've lived here for many years. I have a family. I don't want my taxes to increase. I can't, things are expensive as they are. However, as a town as a whole, I don't think we can afford the liability of pursuing this. I understand that we will lose the grant money, but that is a drop in the hat compared to the can of worms that we will open if we take responsibility and submit this NOI. And I understand that there's fears about these liens on the homes, and I totally empathize in many ways with the residents of Southview. To be clear, I'm not a resident of Southview. However, I do not perceive the state putting these liens on, especially since legislation just passed to extend the deadlines. And so right now, really the deadline we're talking about is the grant money deadline. The deadline to actually submit the NOI and then come into compliance has been pushed out. So the risk of these supposed liens has been pushed out. This current grant deadline is what we're talking about. And like, I don't know, like, where the money needs to come from, but we just pay it. We pay it from somewhere. We pay it from, I don't even know, but yeah, they've got $300,000. Like, let's, I want to expand on this. Thank you for giving me grace and time here. Because when I say there's greater implications, I want to sort of, for the general public and folks who watch this back, to sort of understand what I mean. And it's been mentioned, like the CAT site and Greystone. I think Greystone is a pretty clear one, right? Where there's town roads, similar thing. The only difference is that there's an HOA. Well, if I lived in Greystone and I saw the town take full responsibility for Southview, you bet your bottom dollar I'd be knocking down the town's door and saying, me too. And that's only fair, right? Like, just because they happen to do the right thing and have the HOA, like, not them as residents do the right thing, don't get me wrong. I mean, like, the developer, it was done right. And so that's just not equitable. But it's far greater than that. There's other stormwater sites in the town that the town has taken full responsibility for. Mary Drive and Hidden Pines, for example. The town decided we're just going to submit the NOI. We're going to be the sole permittee because those are cheap, right? That was our decision months ago when all this started. However, at the state level, and Andres can confirm this for me, hopefully he knows this fact, it is the permittee's responsibility to correctly report their impervious surface. If there's an expansion on that impervious surface within the permitted land, it's the permittee's responsibility to update that. And I can tell you right now, for a fact, there is impervious surface in the Hidden Pines development that is not reported on our NOI because it was backdoor developed after the stuff was originally approved. Hidden Pines is very near a 3-acre site. I think they're at like 2.87. I would not be surprised if Andres or some other qualified engineer did a survey. Hidden Pines might very well be over 3 acres. Like, this is, like I said, it's a can of worms. Mary Drive has homes that were developed off of it that are parcels that were part of the Worthen development, but they're off of Mary Drive. Those should be included in that impervious surface. Danny Pete has come before the select board last year looking to develop his parcel. That's off of Mary Drive. That's common infrastructure. That's impervious surface that will get added to Mary Drive and kick that into a 3-acre site. This is a massive liability. And we're talking hundreds of thousands. I think we're talking like closing in on $1 million if you count all of these sites as one. And so I understand it stings to lose out on that grant money, but I think it's the right decision.
Okay. Karen? Oh, Andres, go ahead.
Well, I just figured because all these other sites have been mentioned so many times, I figured it would just be good for me to say, I'm the consultant on all those sites. So within the town of Barry, just if people are interested, the town of Barry is in the same position. They're moving forward with the notice of intent. They're moving forward with the grant, but they haven't represented to the homeowners that they basically represented the homeowners that they don't really know. The state has been promising implementation funds in the future. And they basically said, look, we're going to get it this far. They have some budget to pay for the engineering fees in addition to the grant funds that they're getting yearly. They've been earmarking funds. But then they basically said, once the permit gets issued, we don't really know what's going to happen. We're just hoping that we're going to be able to take advantage of some grants. So I just wanted to give that perspective because I've been involved in those for a number of years.
Kara has something. We'll go back to you. Kara?
I want to apologize for missing the meeting that gave you the estimated total. Did that happen on that Tuesday night meeting? Of the construction? July 22nd.
170,000.
Was it 470,000?
I think that's right.
Okay,
No.
and then,
I think, right?
and then what he was saying was, I just wanted to put that number in my head. Then you were saying with these changes, it increased or decreased that amount?
Decreased.
But by how much?
Unknown.
Unknown.
Yeah, the cost was 360 that with the contingency. That was what I'm looking at it right now, 360. And then that was for 4 systems. So eliminating, and one of those systems I'm looking at was $60,000, the one that was eliminated. So, take 60 off of 360, you're to 300, but then there's a little bit more for some of the piping and stuff associated with the other one. So
okay.
So we're talking, I just wanted to do the math. That's 44 homes. If you take 330, because you drop it down to 300 plus a 10% contingency, 330 divided by 44 is $7,500. And that's just if you were going full 100% toward the homeowners. So if you take a percentage of that the town owns that, you can reduce that. So we're talking probably under $5,000 per household in Southview to come up with their portion of it. I mean, if the homeowners in Southview wanted to say they'd be coming forward with 5,000 each and they could come to some kind of agreement, or those who wanted to pay however it be, my point to you is it's not $75,000 per household that was discussed originally, and I think that's key to understand.
Okay.
Sorry, I live in Southview. I just want to put a person behind it. Like, I lived in Richmond for 16 years. I am about ready to celebrate my 1 year being in my home, and I never actually got the letter. The previous homeowners got it the day that I closed, and only got it from them. So I had no idea. I lived in Richmond, I have a family. I think generally this whole thing comes down to disproportionately affecting individuals for the greater good of clean water, which everyone supports. So I just want to give like a human perspective of like, my husband's a teacher and I have 2 kids in school, and I wish I had known. And that feels like an obligation that I think that's the hard part, that I had no idea, and I just happen to live there. But my property may have no impact, right? Like, I'm disconnected in my individual property. I feel like we did all the right things, like gutters are like executing the ideal stormwater. So then it comes down to like, well, if my property is not contributing negatively to stormwater, why am I? Like, and so you're gonna have that conversation amongst 47 homeowners, and I think that's the ultimate, so I just generally also wanted to just say thank you for I've been watching and participating and I don't know what you guys do on your, Monday nights, other than these meetings, but thank you, it's absorbed a tremendous amount of time. I'm sorry that there's no clear answer, it's all a dilemma, and, but I just wanted to put a person to this conversation. Thanks.
Okay, Chelsea, did you want to go next? You had your hand up and.
Yeah, I was sorry. I was just gonna briefly speak to on something Andre said, but then it triggered me thinking about the state and sort of this enforcement, these liens. Like I said, I completely empathize. Like I empathize. I looked up the deeds. I was sort of, I've been researching this. I have a lot of hours into this. I'm sure like many of the Southview residents do, I'm disproportionately awkward because I'm not in Southview, but have researched stormwater extensively. And just a little token for also those in Southview. And as I said, I'm not trying to discount the situation or these liens, but an additional can of worms is not just the 3-acre sites, but really anyone in Richmond who's subject to the new stormwater rules, right? Like if we start paying for 3-acre sites, what happens to developers that come into town and they have to get stormwater? What happens to, you know, things like that? And then sort of from a personal perspective here in Richmond, we have had stormwater development that's gone unchecked in town and has had pretty vast negative impacts on water quality and the environment. And I have been fervently like reaching out to the state for probably at this point 16 months now, and they've done nothing. So like my faith that they're gonna place liens on your homes is like right down there in the toilet over at Richmond Water and Sewer. Like it's just not going to happen. They are quite literally doing nothing.
Right, and they pushed out the deadline, and I think that's another indicator they're not going to take hasty action. In terms of tonight, I know Caitlin has her hand up and Paige had her hand up. The only action that Josh has on the agenda is, do we go ahead and approve the money to proceed with the NOI? I'm getting the sense that there's no big push on anybody's part, that it would just be asking for more trouble than it's worth. So the lack of, we don't need a motion to say we're not going to proceed, we just don't make a motion.
Right.
So unless anybody wants to make a motion, you can tell me, but otherwise I'm gonna hear from Paige and then Caitlin, and then I think we should move on to other items on the agenda.
I'd like to address these.
And you're Tom, right?
Tom, I'd like to address the forever comments.
Okay, so let's go Paige, Caitlin, Tom, and then let's move on. So Paige?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, can we even table this for now until we hopefully get an answer from Terry on their sent out letter?
Oh, yeah.
And thinking sort of, would there be any mechanism for us to, not create an HOA or an LLC, but some sort of agreement with the town that we are responsible? I mean, I don't wanna lose the grant, but
Right.
we do. I don't, just a thought out there. I'm not,
Okay.
Something that says, I mean, my understanding is the way this will happen down the road is you do the construction, there's, I think, some loans that might be able to be available. You make a special tax assessment district, we pay for it over 10 or 20 years, something like that. So if there's something legally put in place to agree to that without creating this HOA, I don't know. But I mean, I think the state owes us an answer.
Yep.
Several answers.
Yes. But
Caitlin?
Thanks. And just to be very clear, I am participating in a townsperson during this session as I recuse myself historically and will continue to during this topic because I am a Southview resident directly impacted. A couple things. The first thing that I wanted to touch on is I agree. I think we should push this and continue the conversation. I don't think that there's a means to an end in tonight's meeting, but in terms of the conversation that happened tonight. Again, we've been talking about, I think, the same things over and over here. And one of the things that has come up again and again is the Greystone piece of things or the other communities and so forth. And I just want to level set there that, like, when you do have an HOA, it's not necessarily just that the developers have put an HOA in place to leave the residents happy and hunky-dory on their own to manage their HOA and live their lives freely from that business. But HOA is actually a business that the developers would continue to receive money from over time. And so as a result, any of those communities with an HOA is a business where there's no business entity within the Southview residents. And then additionally, I want to understand, and it doesn't have to be tonight, but we're saying that the path it could be that we don't pursue this, and we lose the grant funding. That does still put the town under liability, and that there's not a permit in place for the town segment of the roads, in addition to the homeowner segments. So is there a financial implication for the town itself if we do nothing? I don't think that we could submit without the residents, and so what does that look like, and so forth. So again, don't need to do this tonight, but just some points I wanted to get to.
Okay, thank you.
Jay, I think we have an immediate question regarding item F. I think that is the $10,700, and what we heard Andre say is some of that has already been incurred. He's sent in the document, it says current unbilled time attributed to work on phase 1 will be invoiced, so that'll be covered. But tasks 9 through 12, some of that has already been incurred. So it seems to me what we might ask, rather than approving or rejecting this, is ask Andres to come back without, I'm thinking, number 12. We don't need the full NOI if we're not going to submit it. But what we want to do is finish paying him for the work he's done to date, put it sort of in a can or in a file, and we can resurrect it if and when the day comes. And we're going to end up paying for everything with town funds, if that's the path that we decide to take.
Okay, Tom?
Hi, I'm Tom Walters. I live in the Southview area. I believe I was the first and maybe the only person to bring up the PFAS or forever chemical issue. I'm really hesitating right now because of everything we just went through, and I don't want to, be a stick in the mud, so to speak, but I have concerns. And I first want to thank the board and Josh and Andres for the walk around. I think it was really good. And I think those changes that were made are going to be really good. And I pointed out the erosion, not because I'm tired of dealing with it, even though I am. I just wanted to point out to Andres where the water goes. So I just want to make that clear. But I want to thank Andres too for getting the reaction from Advanced Drainage Systems, ADS. But the response, in my view, is not adequate. It does not say there are no forever chemicals in their products. It's a pretty clever piece of prose. It's a little bit of written jujitsu, if you will. But if you take a look at the word largely,
bringing it up, okay.
PFAS and its usage with various products is largely. Largely does not mean, that means some or most, maybe. Right? The other thing I point out is he says all ADS products do not use coatings that can create PFA contaminations. Define contamination. Is their definition of contamination the same as ours?
And that's specific to coatings, not content.
Yeah. So if the chemical spread 100 yards, and in his mind, a contamination is 150 yards, then it's not a contamination. That's the point. So what I'd like to ask is for a materials safety data sheet.
Yes, yeah.
For these products that are being installed. And I measured, our well is 150 feet from chamber number 1. Other people in Southview, including chamber 1, are even closer. People on Westall Drive Extension are quite close. And I'm trying to be really fast here because it's 9:35. But there are, I mean, the stuff that we're trying to keep out of the lake is going to be concentrated in these chambers. So fertilizers, herbicides, insecticides. Think of the runoff from roofs, the asphalt. Roads are held together by asphalt, by hydrocarbons, you know. That stuff is going to get concentrated in the chambers 150 feet from my well. So I want to ask the board to please obtain a materials safety sheet. If ADS declines to do that, I would like to ask the board to test the materials ourselves. I did a little bit of research. I don't know what it would cost, but it can be done. I think, like I said, I'm going very fast. So, yeah, I think that's it.
I think that's a reasonable request.
Yeah, and I'm very sorry because I know that this kind of throws a wrench in the whole thing. But you know, the water from ground, 150 feet from there is in my body right now. And oh, I know the other thing. I just remember what it was. You know, I've heard that the chambers themselves will be inspected on a regular basis, but what about the soil? Will that be inspected?
That's a good question.
Should it be? I don't know. You know, water moves sideways, so it doesn't just go down. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Paige, you get that last word.
That we are putting all of these in at our schools.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Putting all of these in at our schools also.
Good point.
Okay, we are going to move on, even though I know we could talk about this topic.
Yes.
But I appreciate all the people who brought their research, their personal stake to this meeting because you're doing in many cases stuff that helps us understand the situation better. The next item on our agenda is to approve the Greystone Stormwater Plan. Greystone has a homeowners association, which we will refer to as GERA, which has already started some work on the notice of intent. The town has 2 agreements submitted to Greystone for their review. One establishes that the parties will be co-permittees and that GERA will be responsible for the maintenance of the system on private property. And the town will be responsible for maintenance in the town right-of-way. The second agreement establishes a cost share for engineering and construction of 44.5% town, 55.5% GERA, which is based on the percentage of impervious surface each entity is responsible for. And the packet is the overall plan, and also a cost estimate. The plan is 23 pages long. If people would like to discuss the plan from having read it, they're welcome to. But let's also talk about the cost estimate. The cost estimate as of 1/1/2024 was $107,684, which of course, there's no way it's going to be that now. It's going to have gone up. But again, our share and their share are part of that agreement. And again, we would be 44.5% and they would be 55.5%. So that's a very fast summary. Any member of the select board want to raise any questions about the plan, the agreement? Okay, sir.
Yes. I'm Richard Coles, 1764 Cochran Road. I'm on the downward section of property from Greystone, similar to Krista Kemp Farm. Sorry. So I was going through a permit process to build a barn, build a house structure. I have A&R Agency of Natural Resources has been over to visit the property and has determined that Greystone stormwater is running onto my property in this comment section, which I believe was mailed to the select board too as well. You were on the mailing list, so you have this as well. So it turns out that, if you're familiar, there is a washout on my property
Mhm.
that crosses through a culvert directly off from Greystone
Mhm.
and onto my property, which created this, I don't know, I want to say about probably a 5,000 yard washout.
Mhm.
And so there is a brook that run off, lots 15, 17, and 19 that are not on this plan that was in the packet. So I've actually, I added in the brook on my little sheet here that I have that I would submit to you if you'd like to have it.
Sure.
Excuse me, where you get? So I've added it over on the side. And the yellow area there is actually a substantial amount of erosion on Greystone property as well.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, right up on
Wash that area right there at the top.
Yeah, I wrote in the little line for where the brook is.
Mhm.
So along with like Southview and stuff, so I'm required to have some kind of stormwater permit. But yet I'm asking what the town and Greystone is going to do about their stormwater that is eroding my property. And you know, what steps they're gonna be taking. And how much, you know, this is the whole deal. This is all become the town of Richmond's responsibility and the Greystone's responsibility is the stormwater.
No, you raise excellent points.
In there, you
Right.
know, so I gave, basically, I feel that if now they have determined that this is Greystone stormwater and, that if a grant is to be given, any repair, any work, or anything to do with this washout should be under that grant.
Mhm.
So I'm asking that it needs to be reevaluated. The application's not accurate. It's not 100%, including all the areas that it needs to. And, so, yeah, I'm asking, you know, here we are. I've got a piece of property now that I can't get a loan on. I can't, no bank's gonna give me any kind of mortgage for anything. So I've basically, devalued my property to worthless. You know, it's raw land. You can't do anything with it. Now I'm subject to Greystone, what they're gonna do, what the town's gonna do. So that's why I'm here today. I needed to point that out.
Got it.
Dave, Art, you stuck your hand up.
Yeah, so Richard, I feel your pain for what that's worth, man. I've watched the washouts up there for what, 10 years, something like that?
It dates back.
15.
It's probably been 3 storms that's hit it pretty hard.
And this is an awkward moment, but what I understand is this is related specifically to impervious surfaces, which is not all the stormwater that comes off the hillside, right?
Right.
So if it's coming off over here, off this hillside, I don't know this to be true, but I think it's out of scope of this requirement for the 3-acre impervious surface.
But if it's coming off Greystone's property.
Well, so that's a question of where it's coming off. There's a slide coming off this hillside here?
It's actually a ditch. There's a ditch and that is off from Prevo's property that cuts down through. And they actually put a culvert in it, crossed it. Oh yeah, they did some work to it.
So what I'm not an attorney nor a stormwater specialist, but what I understand that is out of scope for this 3-acre stormwater rule. It's a separate issue of what happens with that steep hillside and what do the uphill neighbors have to do to control stormwater as it comes down through. Separate from, and I don't know exactly where it's coming from, but if I look at the slopes here correctly, it's coming off this hillside, isn't it?
It comes down.
As
the hill,
opposed to.
grabs it.
Right there, so it's.
Yeah. So it's mostly coming off that, and then the brook, most of the steep terrain is up above, right?
So there is a.
You can come up and point out on.
Well, when Greystone was built, this ditch was installed.
Okay.
And yeah, so it cuts across. There is a ditch. You don't even have to go up into the woods to see it. You can see it from pretty much the roadside. So
Do me a favor, can I have the doc, I'm gonna scan it and then we can share it.
Yeah.
on the screen.
sure, great.
Because it strikes me, Richard, this is one of the questions, whether that specific stormwater is related to the impervious surface issue that the state is focusing on in the 3-acre stormwater rule. I'm gonna guess there's a lot of stormwater problems that are not related to 3-acre stormwater rule. Yeah.
Does that mean that anything, Greystone is a whole community, so any of their lots, they're calculating the impervious soil of the 3 acres within Greystone. But Greystone's stormwater plan, I thought had to have all of the stormwater features,
I would think,
all of the lots, so if.
yeah.
I read lot numbers. If he's saying 3 of these lots,
Yeah.
you're dumping their stormwater onto his property, it's still part of the stormwater plan that should be part of the 3-acre plan, I thought, if it's all of Greystone. Southview is different because it has sections that are excluded, but I thought Greystone, the whole community was included.
Okay, can you look at this drawing, see if.
So I won't need a stormwater permit then from the state?
See if Steve Digley.
I got no idea what the state's gonna require of you, but yeah. So all I'm saying is if there is water coming off a hillside
Off
I
of
did, I
3
saw.
lots in Greystone.
that are not owned by the town and it's not part of the town's 3-acre rule.
Yeah, there he is. So.
Well, the 3-acre plan, but is that all of the stormwater there? Or not?
So they don't have an easement to send their stormwater across my property.
And you
Well, this has come up in the village. So let me give you an example. There's a swale over here that fills up with water.
There is.
The water comes from up there.
Also doesn't drain.
Do those properties have an obligation to stop the stormwater on its way?
I say,
Apparently, the state says no.
but I say yes.
Okay, so here is
So-
the
Good luck
diagram
with
Richard
that.
brought.
Okay, so I guess the question is can I dump all my water on someone's property? Wash it completely out? And say, good luck, guys, not my problem.
So you're asking the select board a question about the state stormwater rules, right?
Okay, yeah.
So like, you want to talk about the state tax structure or school approval?
There's a lot of things.
There's a lot of things that I don't
There's
do.
a lot of things, yes.
And this is one of them.
Well, exactly, and because apparently so I deal with this in excavation in my entire life.
Yeah.
I get arrested if all of a sudden I put some water on someone's property that they didn't want there.
Well, we've got your drawing here, so come up and.
Yeah.
So, so this is my property over.
There we go.
This is Highland Drive. Comes up through, this is the end of Greystone, this is their leach field. And so there's this brook, you can see it from the road. And it was installed, it was ditched, it was rip-wrapped, it was everything. And it came down through, and it cuts right down through, and it crosses a culvert that was installed by somebody.
Yeah.
Are you brother?
Huh?
Somebody has their mute off.
And
I think Steve
then
did
crosses
that.
this, and then
Oh, Steve,
so
want to say something?
this used to be a mountain here. But what happened is they put a culvert in here and it filled into the pit, and then after a certain amount of storms, it blew the whole thing out, and it all ended up by Cochrane.
Okay, good
Now,
night,
this area
Caitlin.
here, now this is a question. I looked at the plan, I looked at the design, and I looked at what was the stormwater design was have here. So this is another situation here, and I don't know if anybody really knows about it. And I'm actually, I'm looking up for Krista here. This comes down through here. This whole mountainside, this whole area here is just completely washed out. Completely. I mean, there were probably 500-600, maybe up to 2,000 yards.
Yeah.
A lot.
Is gone.
Yeah.
And it's down here.
Yeah. You can see it
I don't
next to
see
Cochrane.
I mean, there's supposed to be a pond, settlement pond here. Is that supposed to collect all this too as well? Because all along Christus here, all the gravel has exceeded its right of way boundaries, or not right of way, but easement boundaries. It's a disaster back there. And what is she to do about it? She's lost it. I mean, Krista, she's had some issues. So anyways, all I say is I got a brook that crosses here. It goes through a culvert. It washed out about 10,000 yards of my property, and it continues to do so. And I'm just here to say, if there's a grant, if I can get on the bandwagon to a grant that is going to pay to fix this, we should think about that. And I did have to state for a grant too.
Okay.
They laughed at me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chelsea Brooks. So, sorry, I just wanted to speak to a couple things here. First, sort of working backwards, the Kemp Horse Farm does sort of have coverage and protection here a little bit, because when Greystone was developed, they took them to court. And so Greystone residents have a pretty high homeowners association fee, because perpetually they have to repair stormwater damage and impacts on the Kemp Horse Farm. So that's just throwing that out there for the general. I don't know what I'm just telling you sort of legally, there is legalese that is protecting that. But for, again, folks watching this back, to sort of lay that groundwork. And then speaking to sort of stormwater and 3-acre site, Bard was mentioning, well, that's outside the scope of the 3-acre permit, and it's essentially correct, because not only does the 3-acre permit address impervious surfaces, it also only holds those 3-acre sites to a 50% standard, right? So like, they're not having to bring their site into 100% compliance. They only have to meet, like, if you needed clean water to this point, you actually only have to meet this far. That's the way the 3-acre site works. And so water coming from a natural source of the brook, granted, of course, some of it is increased with development and increased water into it. It's very unlikely that that's going to have any sort of impact or jurisdiction on a 3-acre site. That culvert there, I suspect, was done when Greystone was developed and when that shared septic was put in, because your parcel was actually part of the Greystone development.
It's actually, they determined that it's not part of Greystone.
It originally was, is my point. So like, your parcel was originally part of it, and
There was several properties, yes, that was with the Act 250, yes.
So the parcel was originally part of the permit and was actually intended for further development, and the town actually has like right of ways across the parcel to have a road that loops Greystone down to Cochrane, so that it's not just a dead end road, and so it loops through your property down to the road.
So they
Okay.
So they own it.
Well, they have a right of way that if it gets developed by whoever owned it before you.
I can develop it, or any Greystone member can develop it.
Okay, so if I may, I know we've got a couple hands up and I will call on you. The item on the agenda tonight is, shall we approve the Greystone plan?
Sorry, I just have one question to circle back to your point.
Okay.
Let me read my notes, because it was a question with this. So did the town have any sort of input on this engineering process? Like the plans that are before us, did you guys
Josh would know the answer to that. He's not here.
Okay.
But I'm thinking unless there's a compelling reason not to, we might want to kick this down the road until we get some answers.
That makes sense, because I have some questions.
Steve, is there a reason we would not kick this down the road from a timeline standpoint?
Steve up there on the,
Sorry, Steve's the engineer. Steve is the engineer for KAS. He did the design, sorry.
wasn't sure if you're talking to me or not. I believe compliance now has been pushed out to 2028. And I think it has a lot to do with all these questions that are rightly being answered about responsibility, who's going to pay for it, what happens when there's no association, and all that other stuff. So, I mean, there's no compliance has been pushed out anyway for all these 3 acre sites, as far as I'm aware. It was like recent legislation that happened this year. I think it was this summer.
So there's nothing like that. If we kick this down the road 2 weeks, that's not going to put anything in massive jeopardy that you're aware of. Obviously, that's not a comprehensive analysis.
I mean, if I'm doing the work moving forward, we're nowhere near ready to submit a final permit. I mean, this is just all, draft and conceptual in nature. This is engineering feasibility analysis. I actually want to submit this to the state, just to make sure they're going to go along with all of our assumptions, because some of the stuff we're proposing isn't typical, but some of it should work. But I mean, it's like essentially there's a dry well at the end of end of Greystone Drive that was installed as part of this development a long time ago. We're looking to bring that, improve that, but it doesn't necessarily meet any standard, but it works based off of observed performance over the last 10-15 years for that. And just so people are aware of what the 3 acre site is, it's for the water quality volume storm. Well, it's not even a storm, it's just a theoretical thing, but it's essentially an inch of water over the impervious area. So you come up with these water quality volumes, and we're supposed to treat 50% of the water quality volume across the site. So essentially 50% of the impervious, 1 inch over that. So we're looking at select locations where we can get some of that done. Greystone, probably like Southview, is very difficult because it was built, into a very steep hillside with very steep ravines all around it, at a time where people weren't really paying attention to stormwater like we are now. So, there's some past sins that we've been trying to correct over the years, and there's been washouts in the past that it's kind of how I got involved actually through the town, was with one of the big washouts through a FEMA grant. I think that was 2015 was that big washout.
Yeah.
And these properties were commingled. That's how Richard did get pulled in, unfortunately for him. That pit was used to make a lot of these roads and fill in a lot of the ravines. And I believe Carl Parker owned all of it at one point and started to section it off. So, I mean, yeah. And people always like to talk about, they're pushing water my way or whatever. Water's going to flow downhill. It doesn't care about property boundaries. The big thing is when somebody diverts water, which, it's a different story. Then you have some liability there. If you're taking water basically from one watershed and pushing it to another, which, I don't believe is happening in this case when it comes to that one northern property. I mean, I don't know what it looked like before a lot of these hillsides and stuff got developed the way they are now, but yeah, that's typically where the liability comes through. And there's a bunch of streams in there. I mean, there's one year-round stream that is going right through the development, going down the steep watershed, and then there's a bunch of smaller seasonal ravines with intermittent streams, and they're going to wash gravel through with or without Greystone. I mean, Greystone adds to it with some of the concentrated flow from the ditches and the impervious and the rooftops. But you go up and down Cochrane, you're seeing gravel washed out all over the place, whether it's developed or not. So it's going to happen. We do our best to mitigate it to the sense we can, but unfortunately, Carl left no real estate for Greystone at the bottom of these ravines to potentially do stormwater practices down there and keep, but it is what it is. I mean, we're doing the best we can to meet this kind of confusing permit requirement that's sort of a burden on everybody.
But the urgency at the moment to get this through is for the funding that we talked about on October 1st. And if there is a process to get approval from the state that might need iteration, is why we have urgency to try to get that plan.
Okay, so there's a grant urgency then, right?
A grant that we're proposing to.
And that grant is strictly for engineering and licensing fees, right? It does not pay for any construction costs,
Right.
reimbursement for engineering.
Okay, so We don't have answers to these absolute legitimate questions tonight, but we will try to get them and bring this back unless anybody suddenly changes their mind. But Krista, did you still want to ask a question? You shook your hand down.
Oh, me? I mean, I can answer questions. The town was not involved in the engineering. It was strictly through Greystone, we were commissioned. I mean, I did talk to Josh once or twice, but this is work done for Greystone to just get the ball rolling on how the site can come into compliance with the engineering feasibility analysis. And there is disconnects proposed that I'm not sure if the HOA's gone through the various residents to make sure they're all for it, because I was just noted earlier, those are encumbrances. So I'm not sure where that all stands.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the review within the neighborhood.
Hey, stop, sir.
Sorry.
We're not having this is a meeting, not a conversation. I had asked Krista, who had her hand up earlier, she wanted to ask a question, and you guys are stopping her. Krista, did you still have a question?
Thank you, Jay. No, I don't have a comment this evening, but I will be in touch with the select board separately.
Okay.
Thank you.
So right now, I think we're going to go ahead and move on to the next agenda item and try to get some answers to these questions, because we can't spend all night on this, even though these topics that Richard and company brought up are absolutely valid. We just don't know the answers right now, but we will get them. Because I completely agree. If your property is being washed out, you shouldn't just have to sit there and take that.
Well, if they're telling me that I have to clean it up, and they telling anybody else they need to clean up the messes in their yards?
Okay. So we're going to move on to some items that may go a little faster. They're a little less controversial. There is a program called Older Adults and Persons with Disabilities Transportation Program, which Bart, I imagine you know something about. A little bit? Okay. Basically, this is funding that the town uses to provide transportation to older adults and persons with disabilities. It's funded through a grant and a 20% match from the town. The grant funding is being reduced statewide for fiscal year 26. And so this was money that was used to transport on request persons with disabilities and older adults to basically it allowed people to get 1 round trip per week in any category other than social personal and 2 round trips per month for social personal. This all costs money for these people who might otherwise basically be trapped in their houses, not able to go anywhere. In fiscal year 25, we had $17,000 grant money available, and we used $16,034. The match spending we spent was $38.86, so the total cost was $19,920. That money is reduced by about $7,000 in fiscal year 26. So if the costs are the same, that's going to leave us with the grant paying only for $10,600, leaving $9,320 to be covered. And we've only budgeted $3,500. So our options are 1, right now, again, we're providing 1 round trip per week in any category other than social personal and 2 round trips per month for social personal. We could reduce this to 2 round trips per month or 1 round trip per month for any category other than social personal. We could reduce or eliminate the social personal trips. We could make no changes and absorb all costs above the $10,600. So we would be overspending the line item in our budget by about $6,000. So we would like to have had the full funding. We're not going to get it. So the question is, do we cut service or do we overspend the budget line?
Overspend the budget line.
We have a vote for overspending the budget line.
So my perspective, this is the first example of what I predict we'll see more of coming from the current federal administration. And my quandary is, to what degree, having passed a budget approved by the voters, to what degree do we want to put money into other things? This is one of many worthwhile expenses, transportation. The previous funding did not meet the need. It was an arbitrary figure. All these figures are arbitrary. The E&D transportation, this is true of federal funding of aging services. They say, do everything for everybody, here's $10,000.
Yeah.
And then you clearly can't do everything for everybody. You've got to prioritize and triage. And so my question, to what degree would we intend to then make up the loss of federal and state money in programs, this being just one? Because I predict we will face this issue again.
I agree.
So I think that as a policy question, do we hold the line on our budget? Or do we do we assume that we have the ability and willingness to spend more based on reduced funding from external sources?
Adam?
Yeah, I agree with Bard's question. I don't have an answer to it. Yeah, I feel like this is a conundrum we're going to be in perpetually for many years now.
I personally, I don't like overspending budget items, but I'm also aware of the lifeline that this service provides for a lot of very vulnerable people. And I would be inclined to overspend the budget item and not make any change to the number of rides offered. But that's just, I'm just 20% of the board, and Caitlin has gone home. So what do we want to do?
I would just say there are other examples where people don't have a way to get to dialysis. So they use this funding for dialysis. And if you're paying for a bunch of those trips, you overspend, and we have done this before. We're going to have to cut back on the other trips because we prioritize or triage the higher value or higher need trips.
I mean, so I looked through all this stuff and I don't see like a clear breakdown of what specific types of trips we are spending this money on. And it seems like if we are spending this money to enable people to do life-saving procedures, that is a fundamentally good thing to spend money on, and the town should overspend the budget item. I think it's also pretty well documented that social interaction as people get older is fundamentally necessary to have a good life. I would argue that you can find that in ways that are outside of transportation. You can't transport yourself to dialysis magically in other ways. I don't know how we hash this all out, but I feel like there's got to be some middle ground between just overspending and just saying we're not going to do it. If there's like critical life-saving stuff that we can hammer down on this actual info or get more info of what trips are being done and when and why. Okay, we can make a better informed decision. But as of right now, it's like all or nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, David, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so this is David Sunshine. And I unfortunately, due to health issues, am in a wheelchair, and I use SSTA for a ride once a week. And I'd like to encourage the select board to at least keep alive that one ride a week that's left. I can understand eliminating the two for health or social causes, but it is important for myself and others, such as those that go to dialysis, to get that ride. And I think it's something the town could afford to do.
Okay.
Again, so I've always worked with older adults, and I just want to speak to, like, we have community members that live in residential facilities in Richmond that activate this for the Medicaid population, and I think that puts a burden that will see the ripple effects, and I agree with Bars, like, this will be many decisions, but I would highly urge you to approve it for this year and use this time to really imagine what the next fiscal year might encompass. Older adults, Vermont, I have not updated my Richmond data, but we're the second oldest state in the country. It is the largest population, so even if we can't afford it, we're gonna need to tackle the cost because it's going to increase next year. And seniors they do not have a lot of opportunities for local Richmond housing. And this will just make it harder for folks to get out and about. There's very limited medical support, all of those pieces. I do wonder if age well, I work and serve on their board, wonder if there's an opportunity to really leverage some volunteers and support other agencies that are supporting these individuals. So
Thank you, Megan. Angela?
Angela, I just have I want to say, I agree with what Megan just said and what you all select board members have been saying, and I highly support that we continue to fund this at whatever level it needs to be funded, even though the grant monies have been reduced. My only other comment is, how do we make the distinction between a medically necessary trip with SSTA and something that's a social, at the doorstep, does the bus driver just say, I'm sorry, this has got to be for medical reasons only? And then when we have a population fluctuation in the course of a funding year, where we get more people that might need to go for medical reasons. Oh, anyway, a close friend of mine is blind. She heavily relies on SSTA. So I support the whole thing, but we can't make the distinction between social trips versus medically necessary trips if we're not going to police it. So that's
SSTA polices it.
Yeah, they have processes in place that review it.
Karen?
Thank you, and I don't normally encourage you to overspend a budget. But I think you just approved a $5,000 bonus to somebody who wasn't in the budget. I think the difference between the $9,000 and $3,500 that was already budgeted is $5,500. So you just approved a $5,000 for one individual in the whole town. I support, because this isn't just about the aged community, this is about people with disabilities who might need that ride to chemo or to have dialysis. So I fully support you overspending this budget item. Yes, I'm being recorded. I'm speaking clearly into the microphone.
So I see no further hands up at this time. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Jay, this is David. I move to approve the agreement for older adults and persons with disabilities transportation program and to make no changes to the number of rides currently offered.
This is Adam, I'll second. And then can I make one comment too?
Please do.
Bard had his.
For the discussion point, I think we need a dollar figure
I agree.
in the motion.
The other comment I was going to make is that this isn't just all the grant funding drying up. So I think this is kind of reflect even, it's probably a more likely situation we're going to deal with is grant funding shrinking but not drying up. If everything, if all the grant funding went away in this, we would be going from 17,000 where we covered 3,800 to 0.
Right.
Which would be a much tougher but easier decision to make.
Tougher but easier.
It's like it'd be a crappier situation, but easier decision to make. So
Change the motion to include a dollar amount or not?
Well, because I don't know what the motion's gonna like tomorrow. What does that motion mean for dollars?
How much are you increasing spend?
Or even just it's traditionally called 20% match, and whatever they give you, you got to fund the 20%. So
Right.
that's how it's been managed forever. And it's not a particularly thoughtful way of managing it.
Okay,
Just
we do have a motion on the floor that was made by David, seconded by Adam to approve the agreement for older adults and persons with disabilities and make no change in the number of rights currently on.
So the service is the same, but it's absent on how to fund it.
Which is, I agree with Bart, is too open-ended from a budget. We gotta, if we're gonna overspend, we at least need to know by how much.
But do we know that?
in past years, we have routinely, or at least intermittently, run out of money. Like you spend all the money and then you don't have any left and we stop. That's what I remember under previous town managers. So I think we need, in my opinion, we need a dollar figure. In fact, if you look at the agreement, which is what this has to turn into, there's a table. The table shows town of Richmond, federal and state being 10,600 and local being 2,650 for a total of 13,250. I think we just need to say, what is it, instead of the 2,650, what's it going to be?
You're referring to this table, which is going to come up one of these days?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the overall budget for the county.
And this is the actual agreement between the town of Richmond and GMT.
So if I'm reading this correctly, the total cost won't exceed 13,250.
This is at the reduced amount, right?
Right.
So if you want to cover the loss, you've got to calculate what's the
6,000.
difference.
Yeah.
So add 6,000 over to 26,250.
Actually seemingly unclear. Going through it of exactly what the. Doesn't have a stop.
Right.
And with Medicaid billing, you're not gonna find that anyway.
So it's not Medicaid.
No, but they will bill Medicaid first, right? Within-
Right.
Like if someone
Right.
has Medicaid or they're pending Medicaid eligibility, which you can
Yeah.
be pending Medicaid eligibility for 9 months, and then retro bill. So
Or even longer in Illinois.
So, good clarification, Barb, am I to understand you correctly, in past years when all of the money was,
I remember past years having a conversation back when Jeff was here.
Yeah.
Or we'd say, we're burning through it so fast, we're gonna stop doing the social and personal, all we can afford is medical.
Yeah.
That was an example of a decision we made in the past.
So if we want to pick a dollar amount and say we're prepared to fund it to this amount, full stop, and when that runs out, it's over. Is that what you're looking at?
I think, because that's how, this agreement says, what's the total? That's what this agreement says. We will pay up to 13,250.
So that's what we can change. That makes sense.
So how much on top of that 13?
It's changing the 2650 to a different figure.
Right. To 8650, $8,650. There's $6,000 on top of it.
There you go.
There you go.
So last year we spent 19,900. If we added, yeah.
no, it didn't, that was the maximum amount, but it was only 16,000 last year that you actually used?
Yeah, the total on the side would have been 19,900. Our Fed and state portion got reduced this year, so we would have to make up the local amount, some amount towards that. We don't have to do the full amount, I don't think.
Up to.
Okay, so pick
So we could
another,
add 5.
and then you could be to.
$19,250. That's your 8650 plus your 10,600, 19,250. If that's what you want to do, that's the number.
Okay, so do you want to modify your motion or?
For 8650.
Is that the number?
That's the local funding to increase local funding in this agreement to 8650. It's close.
So,
Not to the dollar.
so the original motion's gone, so the new motion would
You're
be,
withdrawing your motion.
right, well, we didn't take any action on it, so.
No, but
essentially
it was.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so I withdraw the original motion. So the wording for the new motion. No, revised currently offered up to a budget amount of 8,000, an additional $8,650.
In addition.
Oh, did it cut people off last year?
I don't know.
No, it was when Jeff was here. So Josh has been here.
It has happened in the past.
But not last year.
Not last year.
Part of the,
Just asking, because if it
Yeah.
did cut people off and we're planning to increase and we're not planning to
Right.
increase social, like, let's weigh, like, you
A
know.
lack of workforce to do the work naturally.
well, and also, many people don't know this exists.
The number.
You don't know to call the town or GMT and ask for a freed SSTA, right? And there are also some subtleties. Residential care homes and nursing homes are obligated to provide a certain number of trips to residents.
Yes.
So it's a tangled web we weave.
I'm just trying to find the right wording here of. Make no additional changes to the number of rides currently offered within a additional amount not to exceed $8,650.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's local, not an additional amount. You already have it.
Right.
A locally funded amount.
Okay. Yeah. So I move to approve the agreement for the older adults and persons with disabilities transportations program and to make no additional changes to the number of rides currently offered with an additional amount of local funding not to exceed $8,650.
That would be a total amount of local funding, not an additional amount.
It's the total local fund.
So the total amount of local funds not to exceed $8,650.
This is Adam, second.
We have a motion made by David Sanders, seconded by Adam Wood, to approve the agreement for older adults and persons with disabilities transportation program and to make no changes to number of rides offered and to set the local funding at $8,600.
Not to exceed $8,650. Okay.
Okay. Please state your name and your vote.
Bart, aye.
Adam, I.
David, I.
And J.I. Okay. We have, for the sake of note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 10 items left on the agenda. Some of these absolutely are 5-minute items. The next item is consideration of approval of a job description for assistant fire chief, which is in the packet. We decided it was best to come up with a canonical job description before beginning to select for assistant fire chief candidates. I'm going to bring it up on the screen. I'm going to try to. Okay, so this is could you hide the chat for the moment? Yeah. Okay, so this is the proposed job description. Assistant fire chief assists the fire chief with department operations and assumes command when the chief is unavailable. This is a volunteer leadership position for an experienced department member who wants to take on additional responsibilities while continuing to serve the Richmond community. Primary responsibilities: leadership support, emergency command, training oversight, member support, community relations, as you see there on the screen. Required qualifications: current Richmond Fire Department member in good standing, minimum 5 to 7 years experience. Leadership experience within the department, respect and trust to fellow department members, willingness to learn and take on additional responsibilities. Ideal candidate: we're looking for a current department member who has earned respect of fellow firefighters for years of service, shows natural leadership abilities during emergencies and training, is willing to take on additional responsibilities while balancing work and family, understands our volunteer department culture and Richmond community need, can work collaboratively with fire chief and other officers, can transmute lead into gold, and that's not real. And we will provide required certifications and courses, gear and uniforms, recognize that this is volunteer service with work and family priorities, and will offer opportunities for additional training and leadership growth. And that's it. Is there any comment on anything you think should be in there, or is this acceptable? Do we want to go with this?
I think they should have a Dalmatian.
I thought
You ever-
Dalmatians were bad.
You ever met a Dalmatian?
Oh, they're obnoxious animals.
They're specifically there to bite people. That's why they have them. I was involved in writing it, so I'm obviously
I think
biased.
it's good.
There was a bunch of iterations. We went through this with Josh and myself. Kaylin helped, and obviously new fire chief Jerry Levesque went through it.
Nice.
We kind of sought some samples from other towns, and to put it bluntly, we changed the qualifications to reflect what Richmond needs and can seek out from members, and having like international quality of training in an assistant chief right now is just not feasible. So this will have to change if the town changes, but this is a very good starting point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have no description at all right now. So this is a huge step forward.
Okay. Does anybody want to make a
I
motion?
said, Bart, I move to approve the job description for the assistant fire chief.
Jay, this is David. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Bart Hill, seconded by David Sander to approve the job description for assistant fire chief. Please state your name and your vote.
Bart, aye.
Adam, I.
David, I.
Next item on the agenda is discussion of creating a sign policy. At the last meeting, I believe, we discussed the fact that the town of Richmond has many ordinances, and signs are covered in the section of the ordinances about zoning, but we do not have a freestanding sign policy. There is a VLCT flag policy, which we could search to replace and use for signs, I suppose. We have a report in the packet generated by AI that gives an overview of Richmond's sign policy and provides links to some additional resources. We're probably going to have to revisit this at the next meeting because we just are too fried to have a complete discussion of this. But the question kind of before us is, do we want to make a freestanding sign policy ordinance, or do we want this to continue to be covered under zoning? And if we do make a separate ordinance, what should it consist of? We do get questions fairly frequently from residents asking if they can put a given sign up, like there at Mansfield Way and Heinsberg Road. Can they please put a sign up saying, please, children at play, please don't use your engine brakes and stuff. And we always have to just point them to the zoning policy. So what do people think? Should we continue to force sign regulations through zoning, or do we want our own sign policy? And you can think about this. You don't have to have a hard answer tonight, but
Jay, it strikes me that one thing we should contemplate is what problem are we trying to solve by creating sign policy that doesn't currently exist?
well, this came up, of course, because
lack of
Black
sign
Lives Matter. This came up because of Black Lives Matter sign. What regulations do we have on the books about signs?
But that's, I would
I grant you.
submit it somewhat different because that's the select board's purview in terms of specific things. So presumably, are we trying to tell ourselves what signs to approve, or is this for other people?
That sounds like you think the existing.
Well, I'm just calling the question
Right.
about what problem we're trying to solve. Are we trying to give guidance to ourselves as a select board? Are we trying to give guidance to citizens or something
Give
else?
guidance to citizens would be my thought, but
If the goal is to provide guidance for the select board, my hunch would be that we would write a policy. If our goal is to provide guidance to citizens, my initial thought would be that if we think what's there is unclear, we should push it back to the planning commission to come up with something more clear in a specific section that's more clear. But I don't know if the select board writing a policy separate from zoning is a good plan, and I'd say that's a nice way of putting it. I'd venture a guess, say it's a really bad plan and it would potentially create conflict between the two, and that would be the worst case scenario. So
okay, so I'm not hearing any big groundswell to do anything on the item at this time.
no,
Okay.
not for me.
Moving on. The next item is informational. Recently, we were proud to announce that the town police department had grown by 50% with the hiring of Officer Armin Nukich. However, Officer Nukich has chosen to resign his position, and we believe this is to take a position with Heinsberg Police Department. We would rather not say a great deal because we're not sure how much of what is subject to the Public Records Act. But our understanding is that there was an issue where he was concerned about getting medical coverage for his domestic partner. And while the town did explicitly state that domestic partners would be covered under our health plan, apparently that was too little too late, and he has chosen to depart. And we'll, of course, be interested in searching for other candidates.
You have a question?
We have a question. Go right ahead.
Can I just see Lloyd with the town of Richmond?
Shortly before July 4th until basically for about a month. Yeah.
I just want to make sure I heard you correctly because you weren't facing this way, so I apologize. What you just said was it had to do with the misunderstanding of whether the domestic partner was covered under the health insurance
Right.
or not. So have we, as a select board and a town, have we learned to make sure that that's clear with the next?
I believe we
potential hire?
have, yeah. We had not ever explicitly stated in writing that unmarried people you're not legally married to, but who are your domestic partner would be covered. When Officer Nukich brought that to our attention, we quickly clarified that, and we thought the matter was settled, but apparently he did not feel like it was sufficient.
Thank you. I appreciate you repeating what you said. I apologize for not really hearing.
Moving
Maybe
on.
for clarification, clarifying, meaning yes, domestic partners were covered.
Our next item is also informational. It relates to the Tesla. We had explored selling it through Carvana. They will not be able to purchase a vehicle from a municipality. The reason they gave is that they need articles of incorporation to purchase from a business. And since we do not have one, they cannot purchase from us. They would not accept the town charter or any other documentation we could produce. Per their customer service, the only way forward with that company would be to transfer the car to an individual that they would then deal with. And Matt did not feel comfortable with that route, so we're back to no buyer. So other options, continue to advertise locally at a lower price, perhaps, possibly advertise in Facebook Marketplace and contacting local dealerships, approach the Tesla dealership for an auction, enter the vehicle into Thomas Hershak auction. If they remember correctly, this would cost about $350 in fees. We would probably only get between 17,000 and 18,000 for the sale. The bid, when we put it out for bid, was 23,000, which we did not get.
Can't get any bids.
Right. So what's your thought, Mr. Car Expert?
I say put it out to bid again.
I think you said.
He said put it out to bid again.
Put it on Facebook Marketplace. Like, I don't know, that's where I sell stuff.
Okay.
Whether it's a one hockey glove that smells bad or an excavator. It always goes on Facebook and it always sells.
Including the hockey glove.
The hockey glove. No, I gave that to my son.
Chelsea.
Sorry for the comment.
We need to bring the jokes. The bidding process, people were aware though of the minimum bid of $22,000 or $23,000, correct? Yeah, okay.
I think it was a sealed bid with a known minimum.
No,
With the reserve price.
yeah.
The reserve price, yeah.
So does there have to be a no minimum? Like if we do, because I have no idea, this is like legitimately a question. If we do a sealed bid, can we just do it and get all the bids in? And then if like we don't like any of them, we don't take them? Or legally, if you do that, do you have to have a minimum or do you have to take the highest? Essentially like.
No, we don't have to take the highest because in the past, we've said this is a high, well, actually, I'm thinking in terms we're bidding for services. We don't have to take the lowest. Highest.
We don't have to accept any bids.
Right.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like if we're gonna do another sealed bid, I wouldn't even go out there to see if there's any bites at all, or as Adam said, post it on Marketplace and other avenues.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, or just
Sarah,
call the
go ahead.
dealer.
Did you have a price that you wanted to advertise it at? That was
I
one
have
question.
neither sold nor bought a Tesla, and I don't really intend to at any point, but if it was an
You're not a
F-350,
Cybertruck guy?
F-350, I would have great pricing for you.
Just as
I
crazy.
do not know.
But so I agree with Chelsea. I think you should put it back out there. And if you have a minimum bid of even 16,000 is or doesn't matter. You guys can decline all the bids and just put it out there. No bid and go for it. I think you should put it out there by.
Can we do Facebook Marketplace and bids?
I do not know.
I like the
No,
idea.
I don't think you can, because I think if you're selling it on Facebook, it's not the same thing as a closed bid process. You're contradicting.
I like the idea.
See how that would be. What do you mean? I bid 18,000. It was on Facebook for 16. Actually, I want to buy it on Facebook.
On Front Porch Forum, like, I know personally, I choose sell things like random places.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I sell in Front Porch Forum, I tend to attract a more local audience.
And I trust people a little bit more too, yeah.
You know, despite my distaste for, some certain things, I do like the idea of somebody local benefiting the sale of the Tesla. Versus
like-
going to Facebook Marketplace.
I like making the extra 6,000 we just spent too, so I predict your local. Let's make up the 6,000.
Okay, so I'm hearing, don't go to.
How do we do
have
this?
Facebook Marketplace, we have put out for bid. This is advisory. We're not actually even taking the motion here, apparently.
Bid with the announcing on Front Porch Forum.
Bid with announcing in Front Porch Forum. Okay, sounds good.
Do we want to just put in Facebook for like 2 weeks first for like $19,000 or $20,000 and see? I mean,
Best offer and people show
Yeah.
up or not. I would just recommend both Facebook and Marketplace and Craigslist.
19.
what was our Carvana? Whatever,
OBO.
whatever our Carvana number was.
Two.
So 21 or best reasonable offer.
Okay,
The thing with Facebook Marketplace though is that somebody at the town is going to have to take on the responsibility of all that.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I just,
Having people realizing we have a car for sale and showing up at the town lot to like vandalize it or lick it or like, I don't know what they're gonna do.
you're saying that like it's wrong.
They don't like musk, so they're gonna musk it, like, we're putting Facebook Marketplace.
Right, me to tell you the Craigslist.
I think RFP.
I think we go back to the bid. Yes, this is a good point, Chelsea. Thank you.
Okay, we'll advise Josh to go back to the bid. Next item,
Thank you.
Okay, this is Kara's specialty. Consideration of accepting a FEMA buyout property. This is for 54 Jones Mill Road. The sale of this property to FEMA and the sale of this property to FEMA and the transfer of the property to the town is scheduled for August 11th. There is no cost to the town, however, the town does own the property after the buyout. And so we are simply, the motion is to approve that conveyance. Any questions? This is the only property parcel I know of at this time that has gone through the whole entire process and can be conveyed at this point.
Where, sorry, which one is it?
54 Jones Mill Road. Kara?
My question to you is, through the FEMA buyout process, somebody's managing the actual project so that the septic gets removed properly, the home gets destroyed and all of the material is properly disposed of. Who is managing that process? I'm just asking because I had to do it before for you guys. Duncan is managing the process.
Not the destruction of the government, the FEMA's doing that. I mean, we're looking at the houses, but I don't go in.
The fire department uses it as a-
Oh, did you remove septic correctly?
No, but there's an administrative part of it, and the state was giving 5% of the cost as an administration fee on top of part of managing the grant. So I just wanted to make sure you guys.
I'm not aware.
Okay, would we be able to use the fire department to burn the house down and as a test burn? I mean, as a training burn?
There's questions with that, but because you have a brook right next door, that's an environmental issue. So I'm going to just ask that if you
Pretty high bar to be able to do that these days.
go ahead and approve this buyout, don't get me wrong, but I just want you to put it on the list of things to confirm is are you gonna do 5% administrative fee to manage the project? And you actually, I think by being part of that grant process, might have to confirm that things were done properly.
Right.
Because the town of Bolton had to.
Well, if somebody wants to make the motion, you will hear what the motion, the various legalistics we put in. Does anybody want to make that motion?
Jay, this is David. I move to approve the conveyance of the property at 54 Jones Mill Road for Mrs. Andes to the town to accept its associated warranty deed with the FEMA deed restrictions and to authorize the town manager to execute the deed restrictions and any other documents related to the town's acquisition of the property through FEMA's Hazard Mitigation Grant Program.
Is Bardell second?
So I am guessing, but do not know, that the FEMA deed restrictions would include the requirement to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
Nope, okay. Well, then we will simply,
Stuff what you grant, not the deed. So the deed restrictions, like Chelsea says, what you can and can't do with the actual property as the town. I just want to make sure that you guys, yes, this is something that you have to do, but just make sure you're following up. Because there could be additional grant funding for you to have something managed to make sure all the work is done properly.
got all that.
Because at the end of the day, we're gonna own the property and we don't want a bunch of hazardous.
We don't want people falling into a septic tank that caved in or something.
The only experience I've had is with Mary Will's old place. We have to follow up with pictures and we have to follow up with reports. So that's the only thing
You
I've
got
done
an
in the
admin
past.
fee, you got an admin fee for that one.
Hard second.
I have not seen that, but once again, these are the first that I've done with these.
So we have a motion made by David Center, seconded by Bart Hill to approve the conveyance of the property at 54 Jones Mill Road from Mrs. Andes to the town to accept its associated warranty deed with the FEMA deed restrictions and to authorize the town manager to execute the deed restrictions and any other documents related to the town's acquisition of the property for FEMA's Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. Please state your name and your vote.
Bard, aye.
Adam, I.
David, I.
Okay. We have a quick item to accept the subrecipient grant agreement from the state of Vermont for reimbursement of expenses from the July 2024 flood. This is not the big FEMA reimbursement that we're looking for. This is some money that flows from the state. And I don't have a lot more about it than that, but it's basically accepting money.
Jay, this is David. I move to approve the agreement with FEMA for reimbursement of expenses from the July 2024 flood.
Does Bardell second that?
Okay, David Sander made a motion to approve the agreement with FEMA for reimbursement of expenses from the July 2024 flood. Bart seconded. Please state your name and your vote.
Bard, aye.
Adam, I.
David, I.
And Jay, aye. consideration of approving an engineer for the 2024 Emergency Watershed Protection Program. We received one bid for the engineering work for the 5 sites that were damaged by the July 2024 flood that are moving forward with the Emergency Watershed Protection Program. The bid is included in the packet. The initial agreement was arranged so that USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service would conduct the engineering with their staff engineers. However, due to budget cuts, they were not able to complete the engineering. They asked the town to hire an engineer. Since the original agreement did not ask the town to hire an engineer, there was no funding to pay the engineer. We are currently seeking approval of the funding for the cost of the engineering. If successful, this will be covered at 100% with no match from the property owners. The agreement was with Dubois and King, and I will, yeah, there's a whole bid document in the packet. It's 20 pages long.
Which part are you looking for, Joe? The total costs?
Total cost, it looked
The
like,
total cost would be $93,000 and it's split between 5 sites. So 20, 15, 12, 11, and 35.
yeah. I'll just pop that on the screen for people watching later. This is what we're authorizing. We are authorizing going ahead and approving this agreement. However, we do not have set in stone that we're going to have this money to pay for it, but if we get it, it would be 100% covered.
So what happens if we don't get the money?
Then we probably don't execute the agreement.
Okay.
Because that money there's no guarantee there's going to be any money. We don't know what the orange guy in Washington is going to decide to do next. Okay. So,
Oh, it is. I
the
didn't
motion makes it
read where it was
contingent.
contingent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I move to enter into an agreement with Du Bois and King for, see, I said it the Vermont way. Boys and King.
Oh,
For
I
engineering.
have a Boston.
For engineering for the Emergency Watershed Protection Program sites that were damaged by the 2024 flood, contingent upon funding being secured from the EWP program.
Jay, this is David. I'll second.
And we have a motion made by Adam Wood, seconded by David Center to enter into agreement with Dubois and King engineering for the Emergency Watershed Protection Program sites were damaged by the 2024 flood, contingent upon funding being secured from the EWP program. Please state your name and your vote.
Bart, aye.
Adam, I.
David, I.
Say aye. Okay, we're on the home stretch. We have 3 more items.
Used to drive me nuts when people would say Du Bois, and then when I heard the governor say it and it was his company, I was like, yeah.
We're gonna see what the AI does with the minutes. It's going.
Okay, consideration of approving a contractor for the 2023 Emergency Watershed Protection Program. This is the previous year's go round. We have already, we're moving toward the construction phase for the 2023 work. We're still tying up a few permits, but we went out to bid for the construction portion while finishing up the permitting with the goal of having the construction completed this season. Included in the packet is a recommendation to award letter to project engineer. The total budget for construction is $476,556. The $93,932 bid is far below that budget, and the grant program covers 100% of the cost.
Jay, this is David. I move to enter into an agreement with Mangan Excavation LLC for construction of the 2023 Emergency Watershed.
Is Bart, I will second that.
We have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Bart Hill, to enter into an agreement with Mangan Excavation LLC for construction of the 2023 Emergency Watershed Protection Program projects. Please state your name and your vote.
Bart, aye.
Adam, I.
David, I.
And Jay, aye. Okay, second to last, before we get to the liquor licenses. The state of Vermont has decided that they like making new bridges in Richmond so much that they're going to yank out the one on 99 that goes over Jericho Road.
2.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, 2. And they sent us a lengthy survey asking us questions like, are there events that routinely take place on the road below it, and so on. Basically trying to find out what the impact of that bridge work would be on the town. And Josh Arneson, our town manager, along with our planning director, Keith Oborn, and road foreman, Pete Gosselin, filled out the survey. hopefully you all had a chance to glance at that. I'm going to
Pull it up, bro.
Yeah, I got it here. Or do I? Oh, that's what I wanted to share. Okay, so this 7-page document is the questionnaire that was sent to us by the state. And our answers are in red. Are there regularly scheduled public events that would impact the road if it was construction, if the bridge was closed during construction? No, we don't do events in Jericho Road, except for the fun run, but we can work around. Is there a slow season or period of time where traffic is less or no events are scheduled? Mid-June to late August. Please describe the location of critical facilities like the town garage and emergency responders. These are all south of the bridge, but they have to travel under the bridge to bridges, I guess, to reach areas of Richmond north of the bridge.
They're not gonna do both bridges at the same time, right?
I would hope not.
Yeah. Usually they do one year and then the other.
We're the contacts for these first responders. Here you go. Are there agricultural or industrial businesses or delivery services that would be impacted? There may be some, but as long as two-way traffic remains in operation on Route 2 and I-89, the impact should not be especially adverse. Are there public buildings affected? Yeah, well, the schools. Anything else? None I can think of. Are there any other town highways that might be adversely impacted by the traffic bypassing the construction? Well, if I-89 is bad enough, vehicles may come through on Route 2. It's not a town road, but it goes right through the center of town. What's Aaron asking?
Water tower.
Oh, the water actually didn't get mentioned here. Good point. Oh, okay. I'm just not there yet. Thanks. We have no Chamber of Commerce. School buses use it. Here's our school schedule. Yes, buses go under it. Browns Court Park is nearby. People do occasionally walk and bicycle under it. Are the current lane widths adequate? Do we feel that it'd be nice to have a sidewalk? Yes. Do we have the money? No. Do we need to accommodate that during construction? Yes. Okay, here's some more important stuff. Are there any concerns with the alignment? The bridge is located over a curve in Jericho Road. If the length of the bridge could be extended, this would allow for Jericho Road to be widened, which would allow for a turn lane onto School Street.
And a sidewalk.
Are there any special aesthetic considerations? No. Hazardous material sites? No. Archaeological sites? Environmental sites? No. Water, communication, sewer? Yes. So this is basically pretty much straightforward. The state will hopefully take this into account when they are planning the plans. And any questions?
I will just observe it, to me, it's going to be huge with school traffic because all the people who come from uphill will be diverted through the intersection. They're going to go all the way around and come through Route 2 and come up, right?
I think we're assuming that they would shut down traffic on the road to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which it sounds like they are exploring their options.
Yeah. So I think we should write it in such a way that emphasizes how if they shut down Jericho Road to traffic, it's going to be a cluster through the village.
Or
and
going
the
down
intersection.
Hacking.
Yeah. We might even put that in to say we strongly encourage you to maintain traffic flow on Jericho Road throughout construction.
Okay, those are good points because he's seeking input here. Chelsea?
So yeah, I just had a few things that I thought we should mention in our feedback in that survey. One being, it really focuses on the school year span, but the school is a hub for like every summer camp practically that runs out of Richmond. OCCC runs out of there for 4 weeks in the summer. Brian Godfrey's outdoor adventure camp runs out of there for like 7 weeks in the summer. And so there's a lot of activity at the school. And so for both traffic concerns, keeping one lane open so the buses can get up through, that kind of thing, but also like safety for kids, right? If like they're under the impression that there's gonna be like school's out for summer, you know, that song.
Would you like to sing it for us?
You know, there's really, yeah, I could, but I won't. I won't terrorize you. But kids are walking up and down there and, you know, coming to camp and
Yeah,
stuff like
that is a pretty sensitive
Um,
topic, yeah.
I think the second piece is in relation to, they ask, I had this already up, but I just closed it. Something about like, are there any, something about environment or infrastructure, utilities sort of impacts? And it instantly made me think of the stormwater project that's going on at the school right now. And if you drive onto School Street, you'll see that one of the things they've done is riprap the hill going right up to 89. Water runs off of that whole area right into the school property. And right now, there's a stormwater project happening to try to like mitigate this water. They've like riprap the hill like near the highway chain link fence there. So it's definitely something that should be mentioned so that they're, you know, right? If we don't say anything now and then we're like, hey, you guys are like screwing us over later, they're gonna be like, well, you didn't know this. You know, so certainly at least have something on paper to hold them accountable, because we all know they like to pour water into our town off of the highway and then do nothing about it.
That's true, that is, especially if there's.
So I think those were two of my mentions.
Okay.
Juliana Hicks. I was a camp counselor at OCCC this summer, and from that perspective, the roads being shut down there would be like really hard because the buses are going in and out of there even throughout the summer. And then also up at the high school, we have Camp Cougar, which is like the summer school program, and sports and stuff going on up there. So it would just be like really hard with the road trip on there.
Very good point. Okay, well, these are all getting recorded and will be passed on to Josh and included in the survey. Okay. Second to last item on the agenda besides the warrants and minutes. It's our monthly approving of liquor licenses. We have 2 approved. Chef's Table by Christian Cruz, which I believe is guy who bought Big Cruz, is asking for an outside consumption permit. Vermont Fine LLC, which is the kitchen table, or that's what it's called, right? They kept changing names, I've lost track. But anyway, the Easter out there is applying for a first-class license to serve beer and wine, a third-class liquor license to serve spirits, and an outside consumption permit. But we have 2 separate motions.
Move to approve an outside consumption permit for Chef's Table by Christian Cruz.
Is Bardell second?
Please state your name and your vote.
Bardell.
Adam, I.
David, I.
And Jay, I.
I move to approve a first-class liquor license and a third-class liquor license and an outside consumption permit for Vermont Fine LLC.
Is Bardell second?
Okay, please state your name and your vote.
Bardell.
Adam, I.
David, I.
And Jay, I. Okay, we have no purchase orders tonight, but we do have 2 sets of minutes to approve. One from this previous regular meeting, and one for the special meeting where we did the walk around and then met at the school.
Hey, this is David. I move to approve the minutes of July 21st.
Adam, second.
Are there any additions, corrections, changes, deletions? Seeing none. Motion made by David Center, seconded by Adam Wood to approve the minutes from July 21st. Please state your name and your vote.
Bardell.
Adam, I.
David, I.
And Jay, I.
And Jay, I move to approve the minutes of the special meeting on July 22nd.
This is Adam, second.
Okay, we have a motion made by David Center, seconded by Adam Wood to approve the minutes from the special meeting on July 22nd. Please state your name and your vote.
Bardell.
Adam, I.
David, I.
And Jay, I. Okay, warrants. The warrants are in the packet. Have you had a chance to look at them? Any questions?
This is Adam. Make a motion. We approve the warrants as presented.
Is Bardell second?
Okay, we have a motion made by Adam Wood, seconded by Bart Hill to approve the warrants as presented. Please state your name and your vote.
Bardell.
Adam, I.
David, I.
And Jay, I. Items for next agenda. Well,
Stormwater stuff.
we kicked the Greystone and we kicked the Southview down the road. We're gonna have to look at those again. I'll take it this time.
The Andrews Community Forest RFP.
Right,
I guess they might not have that back yet, but
yeah.
Did we resolve what to do with the Watershed Consulting agreement? Not really, so that's gonna be a
Yeah, we'll
probably
have to bring that
modified
back.
agreement.
which,
Okay.
oh,
That was the 10-7
Yeah.
additional funds, including past 9 to 12, something like that.
Mhm. Okay. Well, if you think of anything else, you know how to reach Duncan at his home late at night or Josh. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Jay, this is David, so moved.
Bart, second.
Motion made by David Sander, seconded by Bart Hill to adjourn. Please state your name and your vote.
Bart, aye.
Adam, I.
David, I.
Jay, aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, Duncan, for sticking with us. Aaron, have a good night.
Thank you.